Welcome to a very special 10th episode of Northern Lights, the online chat show which focuses on football in the north and the northeast. My name is Martin Johnston, and each week I am joined by our resident journalist and fellow Rothesloon, Dave Edwards. Also joining Dave and I each week are three well-known names from North football, both from the past and the present. Just a few guys reminiscing about the good old days and from time to time giving a distanced opinion on the modern game. A bit like Soccer AM meets the Antiques Roadshow. In this week's show, we'll be concentrating on the Highland capital and the big three, the Clach, the Calais and the Thistle. Our first guest played for all three of the Inverness clubs in the Highland League. Peter Corbett first joined Inverness Thistle as a teenager in 1970 and won 2 Highland League winners' medals in 3 seasons. In 1973, Peter joined Clachnacudden, where he was part of the league and cup winning side the following season. In 1976, Peter made it a full card of Inverness clubs when he signed for Caledonian, and he was part of that great side that won back-to-back titles. After a season with Ross County in 1980, Peter returned to Telford Street, where he saw the Blues win the league and qualifying cup 3 years in succession. Peter became player manager of Calais in 1985, eventually hanging up his boots 3 seasons later. He ended his career at Grant Street with Clachnacudden in 1993 after 3 seasons as part of the management team at the Lily Whites. Welcome to the show, Peter Corbett.
Good evening, Martin and Dave. Nice to see you boys.
You're looking well.
Not too bad.
Nice to see you, Peter.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, you too.
It's quite unusual that you played for all 3 Inverness clubs. As I say, we've got 3 honoured guests tonight, and you're the only one that's played for all 3, and of course Ross County also. I'm not going to ask you what your favourite club was, but you had some great experiences at all 3, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to play for the 3 Inverness teams. It's quite an honour being an Inverness boy, but I can understand why you stick to one team, because the 3 Inverness teams I thought were great teams, great history, Clach, Calais and Thistle. So it was just the way it worked out. I just seemed to be in the right place at the right time, or the right place to join that club. At the time, Thistle was my club when I was very young footballer. Clach was my team as a youngster. But obviously had a fabulous time at Calais, very successful. But it was just such a big club, and that's what I liked. I liked the fact they were a big club. So I was lucky. Very lucky that way. Very fortunate. But loved it. Loved every minute of it. I'd do it all over again.
Mm-hmm. 2 of the grounds, unfortunately, aren't there anymore, Peter. But they were great atmospheric grounds, weren't they? As was Clach Park. I remember the old stand at Clach Park. Massive stand it was.
Yeah, they had big, and then we had big crowds. It's Saturday. When I first started, Saturday was a football day. Everybody went. Pub shut, hut was 2, and then opened again at 5 o'clock. So a lot of people went to games at 3 o'clock. And you see some of the old games. There's some women there, kids going to games, run about. No need for stewards, and it was just a great day what people went to on a Saturday of football. And it's just when the shops started coming to the town and the big shops opened, and the stores and Eastgate centres and all that sort of stuff came in, people started taking a different route, and then other sports as well. But those days were fantastic, yeah, great crowds, and everybody knew in Inverness when you played for an Inverness team. In those days they did. See in the street, they knew who you were and all that sort of thing, and it gave you obviously a bit of credit work with whoever you played for. But some fantastic local derbies. And everybody played for, at the time, the shirt, who they played for. It's fantastic.
I look forward to hearing some great stories, Dave. Peter, those you can tell us. But welcome to the show. Great to have you, Peter.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
Our second guest this evening spent his entire playing career with Inverness Thistle. Davie Milroy joined the Jags in 1972, scoring twice after coming off the bench on his debut against Lossiemouth a year later. Zoom forward 22 years later, Davie played his last game for the Jags again against Lossiemouth, as the Kingsmills outfit prepared for their amalgamation with rivals Caledonian. Initially, Davie became a coach with the newly formed Caledonian Thistle before spending 2 seasons at Forest Mechanics as manager. In 1998, Davie was appointed manager of Fort William, where he was in charge for 2 seasons before stepping down due to work commitments. However, in 2002, Davie was back in the dugout at Mossack Park when he was part of the Forest Mechanics management team along with the late Alan Scott, where they both remained until 2004. Welcome to Northern Lights, Davie Milroy.
Hi Martin, thanks for having me.
Great stuff, Davie. Delighted to see you.
Lovely to see you, Dave. Welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Dave.
Now,
While since I've seen you.
it is a while. It is a while. I was relating a wee story about Fraserburgh earlier on between ourselves, but we might touch on that later on because it does involve a man who hopefully one day we'll invite in the programme, and you had a little refreshment with him that day. But going back to your own playing career, Davie, you played against some of the great strikers of Highland League football. Who give you particular problems? Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Sort of different players at different times, Dave. You know, but playing against likes of Big Gordon McIntyre and Charlie Barber was a bit of a challenge because I'm not the tallest, and they were both, you know, a fair bit taller than me. So that was. But then there were smaller, wider players like Raymond O'Hara and Jimmy Perry and that were a handful as well. And there's another guest in the programme tonight that, you know, I would always have to consider one of my most difficult opponents, but I'll let him to explain why later on.
That's no Peter Corbett then?
No, not Peter Corbett.
Davie, look, Kings Mills, where you played all your playing career, it was a great ground. I love going to Kings Mills. Huge grandstand and a great atmosphere, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, you know, and a full Thistle Park, a full Kings Mills Park, and a big game was a great place to play. It had one of the best surfaces in the Highland League as well, which was, you know, a benefit. Especially most of the Thistle teams I played in like to get the ball down and knock it about a bit. So yeah, you know, there was the shed opposite the stand, the tin shed they called it. You know, the atmosphere from there. Was some characters stood in there in the halfway line, and you know, you got to know them over the years as well. But you know, a great place to play, and it's a shame that it no longer exists. Anytime I pass down Kings Mills Road, look over at the right-hand side, and there's a nursing home and a small development of sort of upmarket houses. So I'm hoping to stay there sometime in the future, but not in the nursing home. The upmarket houses would do it.
Well, you know that when you're in Wick, you feel right at home because the old cowshed is opposite the stand at Wick, the main stand, and of course it's the Inverness Thistle floodlights that are up at Harmsworth.
And the boardroom, sorry Dave, the boardroom table went there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah.
You know, it's going up there in my coach and management days here. The Wick, they're always a very hospitable club, and they're not slow to remind you of where they got these sort of parts off their ground from. So it's great. It's good to see.
I'm sure Jock did him a deal.
I think there's every chance that, but one thing's for sure, I don't think Jock would have been out of pocket at the end of it.
No, I think you need to rephrase that, Dave. Jock didn't do them a deal. Jock just did them.
Peter, that's thrown me totally. Davie, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Dave.
Our third and final guest had legendary status at Telford Street Park. Billy Urquhart first signed for Calais as a schoolboy in 1971, but actually signed for Queen's Park in 1974 when he moved to Glasgow to study. A year later, and he was back at Telford Street, where he helped the Blues pick up 9 trophies in 3 seasons, including 2 Highland League titles. His goal-scoring feats caught the eye of Rangers manager John Gregg, and Billy joined the Ibrox side in 1978 and was part of the side that won the League Cup and reached the European Cup quarter-finals that season. After 2 seasons with Rangers, Billy moved south of the border with Wigan Athletic. In 1981, Billy returned north and to Caledonian, and once again was instrumental in Calais winning 3 league titles in a row. Billy would remain at Calais until he retired from the game in May 1993. A very warm welcome to Billy Urquhart.
Thank you, Martin. Much appreciated the welcome there.
Great to see you, Billy. Really great to see you.
Billy, you tasted Highland League in 2 different eras, basically, and of course your full-time professional career most notably with Glasgow Rangers. Was it hard to come back, Billy, into Highland League football after being a full-time professional?
It was hard in respect that I had the opportunity to probably stay full-time, but it would have been with a lower league club, and the likelihood is I would have had to go on part-time at some point, and getting a job would have been out with football might not have been so easy. I guessed, and rightly as it turned out, that I'd have an easier time employment out with football coming back to Inverness, although some people might say because they knew me that might not be the case. But yeah, coming back to Inverness, from the point of view of people looking on the outside, looking in and thinking, oh, you're dropping down a level, but to me, that wasn't a consideration.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you left a great Cali team and you came back to an equally good Cali team, didn't you?
Oh, I mean, the first 2 seasons that we won the league, we had Andy Penman pulling the strings, and he's as good a player as I've ever played with. I mean, I've been asked a few times who's the best player you ever played with, and obviously Davie Cooper at Rangers springs to mind. But Andy Penman, I mean, his passing ability is, I've never seen anyone pass a ball like Andy Penman. He was absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. Just a wee aside though, you were talking to Dave about the Judge Park disappearing and what's there now. A number of years after they knocked down Telford Street, the Saint and Greavesy, or whatever the programme was at the time, they sent somebody up. They were going round old grounds that no longer existed. So they sent this girl to interview me and a cameraman to take me round Telford Street as is now. So I literally had to walk out Carrie's shop and pretend I was coming out onto the pitch out of Carrie's. I mean, they never showed it on the TV, so there's a story for you.
I think it was a wonderful old enclosure at the town end of Telford Street, wasn't it, Billy? It really was atmospheric, and when it was full, it was bouncing. Yeah,
the Howden End, that to me, that was the best atmosphere in the Highland League. I mean, I know Borough Briggs has a great atmosphere down the side there, but in terms of overall atmosphere, you didn't actually need a lot of people in there because it generated so much noise, even with, a couple of hundred people in the Howden End, and I'll always be a Howden Ender.
Billy, very, very welcome indeed to this very special 10th show of Northern Lights.
Much appreciated, Dave.
Can I just say at that point, guys, I'm fortunate enough to obviously be old enough to remember all 3 stadiums as they were. Clark Park, with the big enclosure, which has obviously been replaced now, but the main stand, and then the two enclosures at the side, which were angled, as well. I certainly remember that. Loved going to Kings Mills. I actually refereed the very last Inverness Thistle Ross County game at Kings Mills, but loved going there. My first ever Scottish Cup tie was at Kings Mills. I don't know if you remember, Davie. It was a 1-1 draw with East Fife.
Yeah,
ended up going to a replay, and Telford Street. And I'm there's not many of us, but I'm very privileged to say I refereed Carley versus Inverness Thistle at Telford Street about 1994. I think Biscuits was making his debut for Thistle that day. Thistle weren't playing too well at the time, but it was 2-2 with a couple of minutes to go, and Carley switched Wilson Robertson because Biscuits had been giving him a torrid time, and he switched wings, and of course he popped up and scored the winning goal. But it was a really close game, despite the fact that it was a big gap in the league at the time. But I have to say, there can't be many referees now left that can say they've refereed a Carley versus Thistle, and a massive crowd as well. And the bonus for me was all the abuse I was getting. Everybody thought I was George Simpson from Aberdeen, so it was brilliant. Dave, Northern Lights, 10th show.
Yeah.
I've just checked before we went on here. 7,500 viewers we've had in 10 weeks. Yeah. Unbelievable.
We were hoping to get 30 or 40 when we started 10 weeks ago, Martin.
Oh, that's not 30 or 40,000, guys. It was 30 or 40.
Yeah.
You've done very well, boys.
Yeah.
So, as I say, it'll be interesting to see how it continues now. Folk are not going to are not forced to stay at home and watch us. They're going to get out and get a game of golf, and they're going to be able to go to the pub in a couple of weeks' time, etc. So maybe that'll affect the figures a wee bit. So we'll just have to wait and see. But we'll keep going as long as we can.
But we're averaging 830 a show, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Absolutely. And long may it continue. And there's more and more every week, guys, coming on board. Any shout-outs this week, Dave?
Yeah, I've got one or two. A chap, Ron Kinnear from Peter Cooter, we've mentioned two of his pals in the past. So he said, "You've never mentioned me." And I said, "Okay, Ron Kinnear, big shout out to you tonight in Cooter." I was speaking to Benji Palmer, who now writes for the Times, the London Times, not the Oban Times. Benji from Bucky. He covers most of the Aberdeen matches for the Times. And Benji doesn't miss a show, so hello to you tonight, Benj. And Jason Barclay, son of Brian Barclay, used to be Murray Perth radio commentator and does bits and pieces around Brian Barclay. But I met Jason, his son, yesterday. He's a head chef at the Balm Springs Hotel, but he's not doing very much at the moment. But Jason watches the programme as well. And very, very big shout out to all three of them.
Great stuff, Dave. We'll also have broadcasting royalty watching the show. Found out accidentally on Saturday. I had the misfortune, or the good fortune, whatever way you want to say it, of being on Radio Scotland on Saturday afternoon. And I was quite surprised to learn that Richard Gordon watches the show with interest. He had mentioned the fact that Tom English, this was probably the only podcast or YouTube channel in Scotland currently that Tom English hasn't been a guest on. I didn't get the opportunity to say so, but I'll say now, Tom, you'll be more than welcome to come on the show anytime, but you'll have to brush up on your Highland League history first. That's imperative. So it's nice to get a wee shout out for the show on national radio as well.
And
Dave.
Richard Gordon, Martin. Richard worked in the Clydesdale Bank. He was at St Nicholas Branch when I was at Harbour Branch in Aberdeen. And for a whole season, he was my reserve goalkeeper in the Clydesdale Bank team. Richard sadly never got a game because A, I was never injured, and B, he wore specs at the time. He didn't have his contact lenses, so he wasn't going to go on anyway.
Brilliant. Dave's Heat Scratcher. We've got an answer for last week, Dave.
I've got an answer, but nobody got the answer, Martin.
Well, there was one or two speculative that were pretty close, I think.
One or two were fairly close. It was the late 80s. Maybe Davie Milroy might know the answer to this one, having raised Forest connections. Something out of the ordinary happened in the late 80s at Mossett Park in Forest. Davie, I'm sure you're going to realise what it is. It's not the fact that a gymkhana, because they did have that at the start of one of the season, and you went to see the mess they made of the pitch for the first game, that it was a wet day and they had a gymkhana with all these horses running about. To
be fair, Dave, it wouldn't be the first donkey run up and doing the pitch at Mossett Park.
You said that, I didn't. You said that, Martin. I would never say that. No, what it was when they put the new bypass in on the A96, they moved the whole ground about 70 or 80 metres to the left. If you're going from Elgin to Inverness to your left, so where the road is now, that's where the old stand used to be at Mossett Park, and the whole thing was moved about the width of the field to the left if you're going from Elgin to Forest.
A lot of folk don't realise, Dave, that obviously the footprint's the same, and although internally the stand is different, but when you look at old photos and new photos of Mossett Park, they look very similar.
Yeah. One big difference is that the old playing surface of the old pitch was a lot heavier than the new pitch. And someone told me once that the Mossett burn used to flow underneath the pitch, and that was maybe why it was so heavy. The new ground isn't nearly so heavy, although they've done quite a lot of drainage works to it as well.
Davey, I remember a game being played, it was Forest against Elgin City. I can't tell you the year. There was a humongous puddle. If you're sitting in the stand, it was on the far left side. A humongous puddle, must have been about 20 yards long. Of course, in them days, the game still went on. And I just can remember like a Chico McCartney aqua gliding across the water as he spit at each other. It gave a wee bit of edge on the challenge, I have to say.
Happy days.
On this day.
Over to you, Martin. You've got all the facts and figures. 1966 only means one thing to me, but carry on.
25th of June 1966. Can you remember where you were, guys? Peter?
No. Thursday, Saturday.
I mean, it was a Saturday.
I may be watching the clock.
Well, gents, on the 25th of June 1966, Scotland drew with reigning world champions Brazil 1-1 at Hampden Park as part of the South Americans' preparations for the World Cup finals over the border in England. I think Brazil had their base camp in Scotland beforehand. I think there's a famous picture of Pele coming out of the dressing room. Is it at Sochi Juniors? Have you seen that, Dave?
No.
There's a crowd of people, and he's coming, bending down to come out the door, and it says Sochi Juniors above the door. So it's a quite a coup for junior football. But that's what happened on the 25th of June '66 at Hampden. Meanwhile, Fraserburgh signed a young goalkeeper from Aberdeen junior outfit Lewis United, young chap by the name of Andy Beattie, who of course went on to greater things and was manager of Rothes.
Well, that's a highlight of his career, obviously, Martin.
Absolutely, absolutely. And during a very successful period of time, I have to say, Dave, that was 77, 78, 79. He was manager when they played, strangely enough, Ross County at Kingsmills Park in the final of the Highland League Cup. He beat 3-1. What I remember from that night was at the end of the game, Drew Bailey came on the bus. Now, bearing in mind, this is Rothes' first cup final in something like 30 years. And Drew Bailey came on the bus after the game and says, really sorry, guys, for you making all this effort to come up here tonight and get disappointed. But don't worry, we will have a trophy for you this season. And of course, he delivered. And all these three guys here tonight had a part to play in that. Because do you know the unique record that Rothes have about their North Scotland Cup final win in 1979?
It was at Cully Park. It's at Cully Park, wasn't it?
It was at Cully Park against Inverness Thistle. I am led to believe Rothes are the only club to have won the North of Scotland Cup, having beaten Clach, Caley and Thistle in the same competition. So there you go. Back to Rothes every time. Also on the 25th of June 1966, a clerical error in the retention forms by Ross County resulted in a flurry of interest for two of their star players, namely Jockey Clark and John Mackay, after it had emerged that they were free agents. Jockey Clark was a coach at Clark at one time, was he not?
He was a coach at Clark. Sandy Wallace took him. He actually played with us, actually, not a coach at Clark. He played with us, and then when I moved to Cali, he took over from Alec Young as trainer at the Cali Park. But no, he actually played for Clark for a couple of seasons, 2-3 seasons with us. Lovely man, lovely man. He's a butcher in Muir of Ord, you know.
Okay.
And he always used to say, his headline on a Saturday was "Carve them up, Clark." Paper used to say. But he's a super wee guy. But Billy knew about Cali. Well, he's such a just a laugh, just a real fun guy to have in your dressing room, you know.
Great stuff. Anyway, guys, the big story on the 25th of June 1966 was that Rothes and Keith were going head-to-head in the race to sign former Chelsea, Aberdeen, Hearts, Partick Thistle, Dundee United and St Mirren striker Norrie Davidson. Now, this is quite big stuff for them days because Rothes secretary Willie Milne had travelled to Edinburgh for signing talks with Davidson, whilst Alex Rutherford Sr., I would think it would have been, the Keith chairman, was also hopeful of securing the signature by the man who scored the winning goal in Hearts' League Cup win only 4 years earlier. However, both clubs would be left disappointed as Davidson signed for English non-league side Margate before playing the remainder of the season with Boksburg Football Club in the South African National League. Incidentally, Norrie Davidson's first club, who he signed for in 1953 before spending 2 seasons with Inverurie Locos, was Fraserburgh. And then he signed for the Dons in 1955, and he played 109 games for the Dons, scoring 55 goals. So that's a goal every 2 games. So he must have been a decent striker.
Decent striker indeed. And Willie Milne, you say secretary. I knew Bill Milne when he was president and also provost of Rothes. and had two really bonny girls as daughters, Kathleen and Maddie. You remember them, Martin?
I certainly do. I've an eye for bonny daughters. Great stuff. Right, Dave. I'm going to speak to Peter now.
Carry on.
3 seasons at Inverness Thistle.
Yeah. First club. I think it was 1970 I signed for them actually, and 5th of August.
Who's your manager then?
King Willie was the manager. King Willie Grant.
King Willie Grant.
Fabulous, lovely guy, Willie, and he was the manager. As I say, I signed that. I was asked to sign for Carly, Clark and Thistle, and I remember going up to the Thistle Social Club with Sugar Kennedy to meet Willie, and of course Willie sat me down and he sort of talked about the game, and Jugs were a good side then as well, and he says, what can you learn from Ian Cumming, Jerry Duncan, Roshi Fraser? You know, that's just that. He didn't have to say much more of that, you know, because they're such top players, and they were such a good side, Thistle then. So it was easy to sign then, and with, as I say, Sugar Kennedy had signed as well. He was there as a youngster, Alan McLaren, just pals I used to the school, Brian McVeigh. So it was, it was good. It was good to sign there. I really enjoyed starting off with Thistle. Made my debut in that year as well. Actually, it was. Well, I think my first time was 10 minutes at Keith. Well, he put me on a 7. There's only one 7 those days. There couldn't be anybody else on. There's just one 7. I remember walked into the Keith dressing room, and Willie told me I was a sub. And then Brian Darcy walked in, and his name wasn't anywhere. So he looked at me, he saw my and who's that? And so he said, you know, and I said, that's mine, Brian. And Murdy said, well, you better speak to Willie. You better speak to Willie because there's a girl coming on, you know. I got 10 minutes there, so it was fine. But I got quite a few games. Willie being the ace striker that he was, saw the striker in me. He thought I was a striker. I'm far too intelligent to be a striker. But I started off as a striker. I did start off as a striker. In fact, I'm not sure the two boys know this story, but my Highland League debut for full game for Thistle, we played David Vale. We won 7-1, and I scored a hat-trick. So Willie was delighted. That's my first game, and Willie was delighted. He thought he'd found his striker. But it didn't turn out to be. Although I played a few more games as striker, didn't score a lot of goals there. I scored a very important goal. It was in 1971, I think it was. We beat Ross County in extra time at Kingsmills Park, 4-3. I came on as sub, and it was the 113th minute, and I got a top one from Ian Stephen at the half the line, and it was away. And I just ran and just had a strike and hit in the net. So that goes into the final of the Hindley Cup, which we were playing Clark that day. And I was sub again, and I got on. We were 6-0 up. Thistle were 6-0 up. And Willie, I was on, and Willie said, we got a penalty. And Willie shouting, Peter, you take it. Of course, big boy did, Julie did, and put it past the post. Which really the Clark fans, knowing I'm from Merkin, loved that. And that was the same day that the day before Roshi Fraser got married on the Friday, and so he postponed his honeymoon and all the other things that go along with that till after the game. So it was a double reason to celebrate. But no, Thistle were a great club then. They had the good boys. Big Jock was there, you know, biggest man in football in the Highland League at the time and for years to come as well. Big personality, called you boy, that sort of thing. And I remember going up in pre-season to get my sign-on fee. It was 25 quid, I think it was. And looking for the treasurer, me and Sugar King, looking for the treasurer, and he wasn't there. They were doing some pre-season work in the park. The Jock was here in an old white coat, stomping about. And he says, what are you wanting, boy? Sort of thing. I said, oh, up for my sign-on fee. All right, how much is it? £25, I said, you know. He says, so he picks out his wallet, he hands me 5 brand new crisp fivers. Oh, so you just off the place, you think, you know. I'll see the treasurer later, and I thought, I'm so impressed with this, you know. It's just left fivers out. I was getting £9 a week, and I was working on the buses, so I got 25 quid, you know. So it was big stuff for me then. But they're all great boys. They had a fantastic team. You can't forget that. Arguably one of the best teams I've ever seen or played in the Highland League. They were just scoring goals for fun then. They had Ian Cameron from Aberdeen, Charlie in the middle of the park, to pulling all the strings, and they just went forward all the time. They weren't great at the back, but they had good players at the back, but they were going forward so often, they were just scoring goals. There's one, I think the year before they won the league, scored 124 goals, which was fantastic, you know. But they had Johnny Cowie and Ian Stephen up front, who were just a treat to watch and just scored goals all the time. And Tony Fraser in the right wing and Bobby McLean in the left. So it was a pretty special set. Hard to get in. As I say, it's 12 players and one sub. So I couldn't. I was playing. We were playing for the reserve team then, but I was gradually going back then, moving more into defence and striker. So I got a few games. I got a few games. I ran for about 2-3 months. I think Rossi was injured, and then I got torn ligaments at Peterhead, Upsley Martin, and that was me out and Rossi back in again. And it was just a case. It was when you only had one sub. It was the goalie obviously had to give the rest of the squad turns to play and turns to on the sub. So you were in and out of the side. But so I really wanted to play football, and I decided I asked to say I wasn't going to sign again. And Joe offered me £75 at the dinner dance, and he was very close to me signing that night because we'd obviously had a few sherries. But I decided I'll think about it in the morning, and of course later on I decided no, I think I can't get a game. I want to play football, and there was a lot of boys there, so that was me after 2-3 years at Thistle. But good club, good boys, lovely guys, great. Rossi was there since I can remember. Looked after me in the first week or so I was there because. I done it because I was from the Merkinch, same as he was. As well, and we married Urquhart, the trainer, because he was from Merkinch, and that helped. But Rossi was such a lovely guy and looked after him. He's our friend. The boys are here tonight. He's our friend even now. He's absolutely. I've said this before. He's the Peter Pan of anybody because he's never grown up. He hasn't got one bone of responsibility in his body. He just doesn't. Nothing seemed to faze him, and he's just the same daft guy you meet and that blather and talk and just joke with all the time, and you just don't see it. Yeah. He's never been an adult in his life, but he's such a lovely guy, you know.
Well, the fact that the wedding honeymoon was postponed.
I know.
There's a book that came out Christmas last year, which I was fortunate enough to get a signed copy for my Christmas from my daughter. It's I think it's entitled. It's a team game. And it concentrates on Scottish football teams as opposed to clubs, if that makes sense. And normally, obviously, these things concentrate solely on Scottish League or ex-Scottish League clubs. So you can imagine to my delight when you open the first page, and it's one of these A4 landscape books. So when you open the first page, inside the front cover is the team photo, and the bride is there as well with a trophy. And there's a wee explanation as to what had happened on the day. So it's wonderful that Scottish football is now beginning to acknowledge the role that the Highland League has contributed over the years. But
and of course Rossi, his name was Rossi. His real name was Horatio McIntosh Cuthbert Fraser, which unfortunately he should have told the referee that when he was getting booked off. He should have told the referees that. Might have thought twice about putting him down. Might have just write down number 2, you know. But that was his full name, Horatio McIntosh Cuthbert Fraser.
Well, you know, that's a great one, Dave. We should be asking the viewers, is there anybody out there who has had a longer, any player that's played in the Highland League has got a longer name than Horatio Cuthbert?
McIntosh Cuthbert.
McIntosh
Cuthbert Fraser.
It sounds like something at a Crumpton, is it?
He's very rarely called Horatio McIntosh Cuthbert Fraser.
Rossi was ahead of his time. He was the first one with a wag. We know was a wag.
A wag, very first wag in the game. That's right. Let's get that final day. I've got that picture at home. It's a great picture.
Yeah, I tell her that, boy.
Peter, thanks for that. Over to you,
Okay,
Dave.
Davie, before we talk about your career, let's talk about Horatio then, Rossi. What a lovely, lovely man Rossi is. You must have a Rossi story to tell us.
I've still got Rossi's still creating stories as we go along, Dave. He's unreal, you know. He's as Peter said, he's never grown up. He stays just round the road from me, and I see him pretty regularly. You know, with a standing. He normally works every second Saturday for driving for NHS 24. You know, he's in his 70s now, Roshi, but every second Saturday we still meet up, or most of them we meet up for a pint and a beer down at the golf club as well. So it keeps him going. But you know, have to be careful what stories you tell about Rossies, because you know, there could be police or that watching or listening in as well. But the one that sort of most comes to foremost in my mind is a pre-season trip to Wick. Tommy McMullen was manager at the time, and we used to go up to Wick on the Friday, Urquhart on the Friday night, and Wick Academy on the Saturday. This is obviously before they were in the Highland League. So it was a case of, you know, the Friday night, Tommy is quite professional about things. He said, "Look, boys, we know there's got to be a couple of beers involved. Just take it easy, because you've got a game tomorrow, and you don't want to come up here and get beaten by a non-league side, because, you know, they'll crow on it." But so, of course, saying something like that, the Rossi's a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. So it's at one point in the morning of the match, he was sitting in the bar in the Mackay's Hotel in Wick, and Jock took one look at him and says, "Rossi, you're needing something for that. You're not looking well at all." So he bought him and gave him a brandy import. So about 6 brandy imports later, Rossi was being put into the shower to try and get him sobered up before the match. He was sitting in the dressing room at Wick with his boots were on the wrong feet as well. But he did start the game. Sandy Shand was playing in goals at the time, and Sandy kicked the ball out. Rossi was playing in the middle of the park. He was running up the park, and the ball hit him in the back of the head. Rossi just collapsed. Tommy McMullen said, "Get this bugger off there," you know. So he's walking off. Murray Urquhart's helping him off the park. There's a old boy standing at the side of the park, and he says, "That Rossi Fraser's no half the player he used to be." Murray turned to the boy and says, "Neither would you be if you'd ate brandy imports this morning before the game." So,
Brilliant, Davie.
but we were sitting at half time in the dressing room. We were 3 down, I think. And Rossi asked Tommy if he could say a word, because he was club captain at the time. And he said, "Well, boys, we want to take this seriously now." He says, "I think some of us have had a good time up here." He says, "I think some of us have had a better time than the rest of you." So, you know, we managed to scramble a 4-each draw out of it, I think. But it was just, you know, as Peter was saying, Rossi will never change, and hopefully he won't. Just tremendous character. A great friend to me as well.
Great stuff, Davie. And of course, your first season with Inverness Thistle was Peter's last season with Inverness Thistle. And of course, you won the league in your first season. That's a great achievement.
Yeah. Well, I was just a young boy at the time, and well, Wally Grant had actually taken a sabbatical from Thistle at that time. So Murder was, you know, acting as the manager and the trainer and doing just about everything else at the park at the time. And I had my debut against Lossiemouth the end of January '73. The game didn't kick off until 1:30. Rodwell Klein was manager at Lossie at the time, and he didn't like his team playing under floodlights. He thought the teams in the Highland League with floodlights had an unfair advantage over those that didn't have them at that point. So we kicked off at 3:30. So played for the school in the morning, and Eddie Hitchin, who I think played for Rothes at one time, from Elgin originally, was our sort of in charge of the football team in the school, an English teacher. And Eddie knew from Murd that I was due to get part of the game that afternoon, so he took me off at half-time. Good enough if I'm then. We played in Urn Academy. Took me off at half-time after I'd scored twice, so I could basically get to the pitch in time, or Kingsmills in time to play in the afternoon. Played in the last half hour, come off the bench and scored twice. But my career up front didn't last that much longer than that. I saw that season out as a striker and played a few games up front for one season, but then found myself just getting further and further back.
I've heard some great tales about Jock signing players. Was your signing for Thistle, was it an adventurer, or was it pretty straightforward on the day?
Well, it was pretty straightforward. It was Willie Grant that did it. He came up to see my parents, and you know, I signed, like Billy did for the Cali, I signed S forms for the Thistle. And Willie came up and saw my parents one night and explained what he wanted to do and what they were going to do for me and that. And just gave me a week, really, or gave us a week to think about it. Because after Gally found out that Thistle were interested, they made an approach as well. But we'd kind of set, my father was Thistle daft, so we'd kind of set my mind on that. So Willie came back up the following Thursday and I signed then. I think I got a pair of boots and a tracksuit. That was my signing on fee then. But S firms were amateur firms in any case, so money wasn't going to be an issue at that stage.
And Willie Grant, what a man he was. He's, well, present company aside, probably the best striker I've seen in Highland League football was Willie Grant. And certainly, definitely the best header of a ball I've ever seen.
Well, Willie was tremendous in the air, and he was very influential with me as well. You know, sometimes playing second team games or pre-season games, you know, I would sometimes play wide on one of the wings, and Willie would play for us spell, and he would just say, look, just put the ball in the air between, you know, round about the centre of the penalty spot, and I'll get on the end of it. And he did, you know, he had a great ability to hang in the air, I think, you know. He made a lot of good crosses look better than they were. He got in the end of it, and he was a great finisher. And a good player. He held the ball that well as well, and took guys in around him. And even at a good age, Willie would take part in training, and he was very involved in that, and was able to pass things on to boys as well. You know, so.
We'll hear much more about your Highland career. And Peter Corbett wants to be mentioned. Come in, Peter.
It's just about Willie. Davie will remember this story, but we were training at Thistle Park, and Willie was playing as well during the training game. And Bobby McLean played left wing. He used to block the centre half, opposite the opposing centre half, like the big Dougal Grants of the world, and he used to block their runs then. So anyway, we had this training match, and when Bobby was doing it, he actually did it against Willie. So it worked a couple of times. Then third time, Willie just had enough, and he just gave him a swing, and that was training finished. We finished early that night. So that was a ploy for the team. But what Willie was playing, it wasn't a ploy we were meant to use. So.
Thanks for that, Peter. Back to you, Martin.
Billy, like Davie said, you signed schoolboy forms for Cali for a start. Likewise, were all three Inverness clubs chasing your signature?
Well, if they were, I wouldn't have known about it because there's only one club I was going to sign for. I was born literally 150 yards from Telford Street, and I used to sneak into the park and play in the pitch. And the groundsman at the time was a guy called Dan Bissett who lived up in Hawthorne Drive, and I must have been the bane of his life, myself and my mates, because we used to climb over the wall Sundays and playing in the pitch. And of course, you were playing in the goalmouths, and the goalmouths were obviously the area of the pitch that got the worst of the games. And you know, if we got caught there, I mean, Dan, as I say, we must have been the bane of his life. And I remember once actually, I was playing. If you remember Telford Street, you could come in. There was a wee kind of enclosure area just as you come in. I was playing there in sort of 2-3 asides one evening, and Dan he saw me, so he sneaked round the back of the Howden end, and he just about grabbed me, and one of the boys shouted, "Billy!" And I saw him, I beetled off over the wall and away. I mean, it was just, I was born to play there, you know, and that was it. That was really it, you know.
Telford Street was I certainly found it when I was involved with club football like Sir Rothes, I found it a very intimidating place because you'd come in the main gate. I think we spoke earlier before the show came on air. We talked about the wrought iron thistles above the tunnel at King's Mills, and for the viewers' sake, I was asking the guys, you know, I would imagine there'll be an ex-Inverness Thistle director or possibly a secretary that has these sitting on his mantelpiece, and likewise, I would imagine there'll be someone in Inverness who, as part of their garden furniture, will have two great big concrete footballs in their garden, because I always remember when you come in the main gate, there was these two great big, and coming from, no disrespect to Rothes, but coming from Rothes, this was a real football ground. And then, of course, you had to make your way all the way around behind the goals and round. So, you know, if you needed an oxygen mask before you actually got to the dressing rooms. And even in later years, when I was involved committee-wise, the fantastic situation where they'd two boardrooms. Yeah, there was a boardroom for all the plebs, Dave, and for the press, and then there was the boardroom where I remember being there as fourth official. Scotland played Belgium in a youth match, and that's where Jim Farry held court after the game. So it was but the whole thing was very professional, and that's no disrespect to other clubs at all. They seemed to be set themselves out a slightly different standard to everybody else. So as a player, as a committee member and a club, found it quite intimidating. But as a referee, you certainly felt you were on a higher stage, just because of the surroundings and the way everybody went around their business. But after 3 years, you went to Jordan Hill College.
Well, I mean, I'd signed S forms, and unlike my two illustrious friends here, I didn't score on my debut. In fact, my debut, funnily enough, was at Huntley. I signed when I was 15 in the March, and the following August, unfortunately, Chitty Allen met with disaster during that summer, and a few players had left the club. So, as Peter says, you only had 12 players, so I was made sub through at Huntley. And 10 minutes into the game, a guy called Ian McRae, who played with Peter in schoolboy days, he got injured, so I had to come on. I mean, if I said my contribution was minimal, that's probably doing it a disservice, because I was absolutely blown away. I just couldn't understand how quick the game was. And that was my only game that season. But to actually play with the likes of Davie Johnson, who was my hero, it was just something else, And I only played one game that season. I think the next season I had a couple of games. Again at Huntley, funnily enough. I played at Huntley and I did okay. And then towards the end of the season, we played Elgin in one of the last games of the season. I played that. But three of us there's a guy called Jeff McDonald, Kevin McDonald, who went to Leicester, played for Cali, his brother, and a guy called Andy Smith, who was a teammate of Dave and I in school as well. We all signed we were all S forms at Cali, and we were all going to university, so we all signed for Queen's Park as amateurs. But to be honest, the travel, I mean, it was not something I wasn't used to. I was living in Clydebank at the time. To get to training, I had to take a train in or a bus in from Clydebank to the Central, then get out to Queen's Park, and the same in reverse on the way back. Now, to people down south will think, oh, that's nothing. But for me, it was a big thing. So after 3 months, I thought, enough of this. So as an amateur, I was able to move on, and basically I played for the university team, the college team, Jordan Hill, scored quite a lot of goals. And to be honest, playing in that league, that's what made me physically what I was, because you were playing in the Glasgow amateur leagues, and I can tell you, if you didn't stand up to the physical side, you just could not play. Never mind ability and so on and so forth. There was guys there that would, just take you out as soon as look at you. And that was the big thing. And then, of course, I came back up to Inverness, signed for Cali. I was travelling back and forth, scored a few goals, but my heart wasn't in it down in Glasgow, so packed it in and then just started playing football up here.
Great, Billy. Right, we'll come back to your next stage later on. Over to you, Dave.
Billy, before I move on to Peter, can I ask you your time in the amateur football in Glasgow? Playing down there ended my playing career on Blaze pitches. I knackered my knee playing in Blaze pitches. I only played 2 games on Blaze. It was a nightmare for a goalkeeper. Did you have to play in Blaze pitches down there too, Billy?
Yeah, my debut for Jordan Hill was actually at Steps, near the prison at Steps. And there was 3 or 4 Blaze pitches, and we played out there. And in fact, at Jordan Hill College itself, sometimes we couldn't get onto the main pitches, and we had a Blaze pitch, so we were able to use that. In point of fact, Rangers, when I went there, we used to do some of our training on the Blaze pitch at the Albion. There was a plethora of Blaze pitches all through the Central Belt.
I think for many years Aberdeen used the Blaze car park for training matches as well in the past. Dave, would that be right?
That's right. And for our younger viewers, Blaze is, well, I suppose it's like the red tennis courts you would see. It's like a red ash, and it's hard as hell. Peter?
A few scrapes from playing on Blaze.
For sure. But it was good for ball control, I would imagine, and your skills.
Well, you you
No,
got a good
no,
bench.
not
There
really.
was no, you know, you didn't have a problem with grass.
I once did a dinner with Frank. Well, I've done a few with Frank McAvenny, but somebody asked him, he said, "What's the difference between grass and astroturf?" And he thought for a minute, he said, "I don't know, I've never smoked astroturf," he said. That's just hearsay. Peter Corbett, Peter,
Yes, Dave.
after 3 years with Thistle, you moved on to what I've always thought was maybe your spiritual home, Grant Street Park.
Yeah. I was a Birkinge boy, local. You watched the team when I was young, and that's where I came from. But yes, I was quite glad to go back there. But the team at Sandy Wallace took over when I joined it. I think there were only 3 left over from the team the year before, so it was a complete new squad that was going there, and that's what interested me because I knew some of the boys that were going there. John Allison, Alan McLaren, so that was fine with me. I liked all that boys, and it was quite good to start. I thought I was starting again. That's what a £50 transfer fee. Clach were going to pay 40, but Forest were going to pay 50. So Clach had to eventually find another tenner from somewhere, and so they got me for £50. But as a young team, as I say, and it was a great spirit. It was such a laugh with these boys. They were so good, and we had such an exceptional manager, Sandy Wallace, who was word to the moon. He really was, but he was so motivational. You boys will know him. He went up and down the terracing off the park, and the terracing supporting, shouting at us, encouragement, motivating us, and he was up and down, and he was like a madman, really. Most people thought that. And he took his life in his hands because he's gone back and forth among supporters, shouting fantastic things to us. But once again, he was a great motivator. There's many a training session we've wanted to go and play that there and then, right after the training session, because he just motivated us when we're having a wee warm down afterwards, and he was so good at that. But what he did, he got a lot of good players together, a lot of good types together. He got some great players. Big Raymond was there was knocking goals in with Charlie Kennedy, another great strike force, maybe not as good as Raymond and Billy, but fantastic combination at the time, and that was winning games for us. And while that was happening, we were all expanding our own game. Donny Stewart was becoming a good player. I was becoming a good player. John Allison, Alan McLaren, Billy McDonald in goals. So it was a great spirit, and we were a very young side. And I know we used to go away to games, and I remember one game we were 4-0 up at Dingwall, 4-0 against Ross County, who were a top side then. They had a lot of senior players. Ian McNeil's manager, and somebody used to come there. We were 4-0 up at half time, and I mean, good in a half time. I think we were all shaking like a leaf. A lot of us, we just couldn't handle as young boys. Anyway, out the second half, we could beat 5-4. So that was a nice lesson to learn. Not at the time, but it was a nice lesson to learn. But as we grew older and a bit more experienced, we really had a great fitness level. So it was good. And as I say, Sandy was a top man when it came to motivated players. And we had some really good players then.
In that second season, 74-75, Clach won the Highland League.
That's right. Yeah, we did really well. We were going well, and it came to one of our last games. In fact, the last game at Thistle. Davie might have been playing. I'm not sure at Clough Park. Tommy Millen was a player manager then, and he actually got sent off during the game. But Clough came out 2-1 on the night, and it was a fantastic night. We had a great crowd. That was the night we won the league. It was just mayhem, and of course Clough hadn't won the league for about 30, 40 years since then, before that, 30 odd years before that. So it was great scenes for Merkinch. And as a Merkinch boys, it was great for me because it's where I was brought up. But I was so lucky to play then, and you learned a lot about your game then, And Sandy, after we won the league, unfortunately, Sandy packed it in because he really was full on with football, so I can imagine his work and his home life was suffering. And unfortunately, things lost its way a wee bit there. We ended up 10th in the league following season. And that's the season I left. And a few of the other boys left. Some boys went to Ross County. The whole team broke up, actually, more or less in that year. But we had great times. We were social-wise. The social club had just opened in 1973, the Clough Social Club, an absolute gold mine. It must have been the biggest club this side of, Perth. It was queued out the door, and they were fabulous. I don't remember the Usher's beer. the Norseman lager with the Viking with the ox at the dartboard. The advert you used to see years ago. Well, that was the only one that would give the Clough beer. Tenants wouldn't take them on. Newcastle would take them. Well, after the first year, they were knocking the door down and trying to take over the contract. But Asher's had the Clough for 10 years, and they kept. I mean, Asher's beer is a bit like home brew boys, you know. Once you get the third one, they're okay, but before that, they're really bad, you know. But as I say, it's a gold mine, and people were Clough were making so much money then, and it's a great time for the club. So it was a good time for me, certainly. I was just lucky, as I say, I feel almost lucky. I'm in the right place at the right time, you know. Been so fortunate.
Mm-hmm. And Clough have always had a very loyal local support, haven't they, really?
Yeah, they have. They've got a great history, fantastic history. I think all the clubs have a great history. And I mean, Martin could talk about Rothes, you boys could talk about Rothes, Davie, Thistle, can't leave it. But Clough were one of the founders of the Highland League, and had a great history right early on. I think they won the most Highland League titles, so they got a great record throughout the time. And obviously George Rogers was another very, very prominent figure in the Highland League in the 60s, 70s. But like Jock, very powerful figure and very clever guy, you know. I was at the time I was going so well. I was getting there's seemingly a lot of clubs coming to look at me and watch me. And I've heard, you know, you hear the papers got Partick, Dundee United, Portsmouth, St Johnstone, Morton, and St Mirren. And the St Mirren one, Sammy Wallace came to work one day and says, "Do you want St Mirren in the First Division then, which is the Premier League?" And said, "Do you want to go Premier League, the First Division?" And I right away says yes, even though I was engaged to a girl at the time. I said right away yes. So he said, "We'll go up to old George Rogers' flat above the shop, and we'll eat canning and we'll phone you." So I did do that, and I sat there and talking away to old George, old Potty he was called, and he told me all the stories and saw all of his pictures and whatnot. But Willie kind of never phoned, and that was probably the biggest disappointment in my life, I think, because I thought I was away then, you know, and I would have gone like a shot, not even thinking of anything else. And he actually signed Tommy McMillan about a month later, and Tommy's obviously a bit more quite experienced, so I think that's what he was looking for at the time. But that was the ups and downs of playing for Clough. But certainly, as Dave said, they had a great fan base. Still have loyal fans, and I think if the team got going again, they would certainly they would increase their gauge quite a lot, really quite a lot. But it's difficult now. But everybody's got a soft spot for Clough, they feel for Clough in a lot of ways, you know. And they come back from the dead so many times. It's another thing, you know. A liquidation and 2 administrations. It's not that's a record in itself. Not one to be proud of, but I suppose it is. It still shows how committed they are to staying in the Highland League and staying in a local club for their area.
Mm-hmm. I can empathise with your disappointment of that phone call never coming, Peter. I started working the bank in Rothes on a Monday, and on the Wednesday I got an invite to train at Pittodrie for a month at the start of the season. And I would never have made it. I was too little for a goalkeeper, but it was nice to get the invitation. But my mum said, "You started working Monday, you're no leaving your working Wednesday to go and kick a ball for a month." But the Aberdeen keepers at the time were both internationals, Ernie McGarr and Bobby Clark. Mm-hmm. And then in the October, and equally disappointing, I was going to go down to Everton for a week's trial at Everton. And I got a phone call on the Friday. I was leaving on the Sunday. I got a phone call on the Friday, and they said, "I'm sorry, son, you're not coming to Goodison Park." And I said, "Well, could you tell me why? It's very disappointing." And they said, "Yeah, we've just sacked the manager, Harry Catterick. Everything he set up has been scrapped, so you're no coming." But there you go. Landed up signing for Elgin City and sitting on my backside for a season waiting for Lottie to get injured. But there you go. That's football. Peter, yeah, thanks for those memories.
It is, Dave. You know, and as you say, that's my biggest disappointment. But you know, look what happened after all that. So I have no complaints at all. I've had a fantastic time. So there's a reason for that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I've loads more memories to share. Thanks for the moment, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to say, guys, that I can understand what it's like waiting for a phone call, but that mystery guest that we've got coming next week has just sent me a text and saying he is coming next week. So we've got a full house, Dave.
Good. He's no fear after all.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, Peter, before I go to Davie, was George Rogers obviously played at Chelsea. And there's a famous story where he was in South America on tour, pre-season, and the South American player pulled a revolver out on the referee. A bad decision. Fortunately, we never had to encounter anything like that. But I had the privilege of meeting George once. Unfortunately, he took a wee fall at Rothes. I'm not saying if he'd been in the social club before the game or no. And I helped him. I was selling programmes. I was just a youngster and I was selling programmes, and I helped him to his feet. And I said, "Are you all right, Mr. Rogers?" And he was so chuffed. A young boy knew who he was. And I just said, "Well, everybody follows football knows who you are, sir." And he was just so made up that somebody knew, a young laddie from Rothes knew who he was. So, and he was a gentleman. He was an absolute gentleman.
He certainly was. Yeah, he certainly was. Davie,
late 70s, 77, 78, I just was starting to be allowed to go to away games. That would make you feel old, guys, but I was 13, 14 at the time, and I was going to the big school, so it was okay for my mum said it was okay, I could go in the team bus. I think she wasn't so much worried about me going to away games. It was because I was going on the Rothes bus to away games. I think that might have been a bit of an education itself. There's always been an affinity between Rothes and Inverness Thistle over the years. I don't know. Well, Jock actually stayed in Rothes at one time. He worked at a distillery in Rothes. He married a local girl from Aberlour. And there's been a few Rothes loons played for Thistle over the years. The names that come to mind: Big Davie Watt, Davie Newlands.
Yeah.
Who could forget Calvin Malcolm? And am I right in saying from my era, Alan Wallace played in goals? So there's always been a great sort of relationship between Rothes and Inverness Thistle. I don't know if Jock had a wee soft spot for Rothes over the years, and maybe it was a happy hunting or a good hunting ground for him for young talent. But anyway, Davie, end of the 70s, into the 80s, been a barren spell for Thistle. You lost in that epic cup final to Rothes, 78, 79, but you go back on winning ways in the new decade, picking up the qualifying cup.
That's the infamous or the famous final at Elgin, Martin, yeah? The game against Bucky.
Bucky, yeah. And I can remember the headline at the time. I think it was a big fine in that game, was there not? Were Bucky Thistle fined? I think, if I remember correctly, there was a wee bit of crowd trouble, just to let the viewers know, and Inverness Thistle got away with a warning, and Bucky Thistle were fined £1,000. Now, I'm not suggesting that Jock being on the board at Hampton at Park Gardens had anything to do with that. I wouldn't begin to suggest that. But there was a suggestion of unfairness that both clubs weren't treated fairly at the time. And £1,000 in what would have been 1981, 1980, 81?
80, I think, Martin.
A whacking huge amount of money at the time.
It was, well, you know, I was otherwise engaged at the time, Martin, so I wasn't sure what was actually going on the terrace, and, you know, I had a bit of a hands full, but, you know, it did kick off, I think, as we went 2 up. I think Bucky went into the game as big favourites. I think Big Alan White was manager of Bucky at the time, and the story was that he'd actually taken the players around Bucky in the morning of the game on a bus, because the fleet were in as well, and he wanted to, you know, let the locals, the supporters, see it before they set off to Elgin. So, and they'd beaten us, I think, 2-0 at Bucky a couple of weeks before the final as well. But everything sort of clicked into place for us that day. That was the game. We'd been to 5 or 6, maybe even more than that, cup finals, and been beaten the 3-4 years before that. And it's with a chap on the committee at the time that Peter will certainly remember, Hector Mackenzie, who was the licensee of one of the pubs in Inverness. And Hector was going about with bottles of champagne in the boot of his car for at least 2.5, 3 years, ready to be opened. And we eventually won that cup, and it was you know, a big day. It was a big relief off, because some of the players sort of thought they had a bit of a jinx on them as well in cup finals. Jimmy Ingles, who was a great player for Thistle. Jimmy was involved in all the games we'd been beaten, and Jimmy did sort of feel as if he'd a bit of a jinx on playing for the Jags in the cup finals, and he scored that day. And Jimmy was he celebrated to the full. That was for sure. You know, I think he got back. Jimmy was based on Skye at the time. In fact, he still lives over there. I think Jimmy didn't get home to Skye Club at the Wednesday after the game. So it was a great day.
I assume, Davie, and not just yourself, Peter and Billy, because of the success of the Inverness sides in the past, did you feel as a player that you were under a wee bit more pressure to bring home trophies than maybe, you know, the clubs out with the Highland capital?
I don't know if you felt like that. Yeah, I was pretty fortunate in the number of times we went. There weren't that many seasons in all the time I was at the Jags Park that we didn't win something. Even the final season where we really struggled, we won the Inverness Cup. So, you know, there was usually something there. But I don't think you felt under any undue pressure to win it. I don't think Thistle didn't have the same kind of recent history as, you know, it's certainly the Cali had in competing at the top end of the league. You know, when Jock went in and took over the club, that certainly increased the profile, and they did a lot better for a spell. But I wouldn't have said, apart from Jock himself putting you under a fair bit of pressure, he wasn't a man you wanted to meet in the dressing room at the end of the game if we'd been beaten. That was for sure, you know.
I can vouch for that. He wasn't somebody you wanted to meet in the dressing room if a decision had gone against the club as well. I can vouch for that one. And obviously,
he was a bit.
Sorry, Davie.
No, I was going to say, I remember getting beat. We got beat 2-0 at Dingwall one night in a league game, and Jim Calder was in goals, and Jim had a bit of a nightmare that night. And he knew that himself, and Jock came in and got ripped into us. So Jimmy threw his wage packet at Jock and told him to take his wages, you know, keep his wages. So Jock picked them up, put it in his pocket and went away. But then, I think it was a midweek game, so I think on the Saturday before the game, Jock called Jimmy outside and gave him the wages back and told him not to be so stupid, you know. We win as a team, you lose as a team. So, you know, underneath it all, you know, there was a blister there, but, you know, contrary to public belief, there was a heart, you know.
I think it was general consensus the other week when we had Charlie Christie and company on the show that, you know, had it not been for the Jock McDonalds and the Sandy Stables of this world, there would be no Cali Thistle today, and Ross County certainly wouldn't be where they are either. They made a fantastic contribution to North football behind the scenes, just slowly plugging away about the Highland League, and they have got they've left us with a great inheritance in that respect. That you know, both Inverness and Dingwall have got representation at senior level. I'm going to ask you now about that epic cup tie against Falkirk, which grabbed everybody's imagination at the time, and it was a record-breaking fixture for postponements. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's, well, I don't know if they still produce a Guinness Book of Records now, but it certainly was in it for a number of years. I think it went to 29 postponements in the end. It was at the stage, you know, I was working the job centre in Inverness at the time. You were going in every day to work with your boots with you because you didn't know there would be an inspection early in the morning, say at 10 o'clock, to decide whether the game was going to go ahead. So, you know, you were walking about basically with your boots all the time, you know. So it was.
And am I right in saying, was it eventually played on a weekday afternoon?
It was a Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
It was eventually played, and it was all a wee bit of an anticlimax in the end. Because I think we lost a goal after about 2 minutes and got beat 4-0. So, you know, it was. But in the middle of it all, while they were trying to get the game on, we were talking about Jock. Jock had a great idea. We were going to play Forest Mechanics in a friendly. Forest, I think, had their home game called off on the Friday night. We played Forest Mechanics in a friendly, and to try and get the pitch playable for the friendly, Jock imported about half a dozen, maybe 8 old coal-fired braziers that he set out in the park. And it did manage to sort of thaw bits and pieces out, but it left water lying there. So, of course, the weather didn't get any better. The water was left. The water froze. So, actually, the park was made worse as a result of all that, and probably added to the postponements. But you know, when it was eventually played, it was a hard park, and you know, it did become a wee bit of an anticlimax. I think even the crowd that day wasn't that great because people just couldn't get off their work the same.
I think there was maybe a lot of school kids in the crowd with false moustaches and specs on that afternoon.
Well, let's say that, yeah. I think, you know, we're quite fortunate. Most of the boys that played with us at the time had guys that had employers that were pretty sort of supportive of what they were doing. So I don't think we were short of anybody because they couldn't get off. But, you know, I think there was one or two that go quite close to the wire to find out whether they would be available on the day or not. So it was just we were kind of, in one way we were glad to get it out of the way in the end. So we'll see.
Yeah, but Thistle had a great Scottish Cup tradition. I'm saying Thistle had a great Scottish Cup tradition, Davie.
But you know, over the years, you know, we were a hard team to beat at Thistle Park in the Cup. You know, there was the famous result where we beat Kilmarnock 3-0. Well, Kilmarnock were still in the top tier of Scottish football at the time. But that was a case you talked to. You know, we were talking earlier about pitches not being playable and that. I think the pitch that day was pretty borderline. In fact, it was frozen, absolutely solid. We were 1-0 up, and Mike Cormack was substitute for Kilmarnock at the time. Mike, who played for Vale and one or two other clubs in the Highland League before he went south. Mike came on a sub, and he had aluminium studs on. And poor Mike couldn't stay on his feet for the period he was on the park. I think he spent most of the time sliding on his backside. Yeah. So yeah, it was. And then there was other teams. Montrose were being up here. Quite a few other, you know, they mentioned East Fife draw, a Berwick draw, things like that. So it was. We had a good record at Thistle Park in the Scottish Cup.
Davie will come back and speak to you about in the 80s, but before I go, I'll just mention that you mentioned Mike Cormack there. Mike Cormack has a fairly well-known son-in-law who has a record goal-scoring feat in SPFL football. He's the first player ever to score 100 goals in SPFL, and that is indeed Rory McAllister. It's Mike Cormack's son-in-law.
Right.
Mike Cormack should have been a goalkeeper in my mind. He's got the biggest hands I have ever seen in my life. Absolutely massive. In fact, I defy there's not a manufacturer out there that can make gloves big enough for Mike Cormack. I'm telling you, it's a big. I wouldn't like a dart on the side of the head. That's for sure. Davie.
Yeah, Mike Corbett, the like shovels his hand. Going back to before I move on to Billy, can I ask Davie? There's a famous story now. You'll be able to tell me if this is true. That Thistle, in their dominance, had a goalkeeper called Jim Calder. Did Jimmy once sit on top of a crossbar and have a cup of tea? Because I've been told this happened. You can maybe tell me if it's fact or indeed fiction.
Well, it's partly Dave. He certainly sat on the crossbar, but he didn't have a cup of tea. We were playing Forest at Thistle Park, and we were 6 or 7 up, and Jimmy was getting quite fed up, so he decided to climb up the post and sit in the crossbar for a while. But this was after the young boys behind the goals counting him. He was doing press-ups before that on the penalty spot, and he had the young boys behind the goals counting them, and they gave him a shout when he did 25 so he could take a break. And then he went down another. Now, Forest were not a bad side at that time. In fact, it was probably just round about the time they won the league, either the season before or the season after. And it was just one of those days where I think Charlie Christie was playing, and Charlie had one of his days where he just ran the show and tore the other team apart. But no, Jimmy was certainly one of the, as well as being a really good goalkeeper, he was one of the characters, not just on the pitch, but around the dressing room as well. He's just, he's another Rossi Fraser in as much as Jimmy will know, he'll never grow up either.
And a great
goalkeeper
sense of humour. He was the Cali Thistle goalkeeper against Celtic in that magnificent 3-1 historic win.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Oh no, Jimmy did well for Cali Thistle when, you know, he joined Cali Thistle as probably seen to be the second choice goalkeeper to Mark McRitchie, and you know, Jimmy eventually replaced Mark and went on to have a really good Scottish League career.
Another man in a great Scottish League career, Billy Urquhart. Billy, before we move on to Glasgow Rangers, you came back from Jordan Hill to your club really, Cali, and you won the league 3 years in a row.
No, we won it 2 years in a row prior to going out when I came back from Jordan Hill.
Okay, yeah.
The first season I came back from Jordan Hill, I started off, in fact, the first game of the season was down at Clach Park. Peter was suspended, nothing unusual there. And I was thrown up front. I think Callum Grant actually was manager of Clach at that point. And I scored twice, and for the next 5-6 games, I couldn't stop scoring. But like the boys, you know, things didn't work out up front. I ended up getting pushed back into the middle of the park. And by the end of that season, you know, I was playing in the middle of the park, journeyman midfield player, nothing special. But the last game of the season was through at Lossiemouth in the Bells Cup second leg final. We lost 2-0 at Cully Park, so we're 2-0 down. And the guy that was supposed to play up front with Ray McIntosh, a guy called, I think it was Ian Hamilton, and he didn't turn up. So they threw me up front with Raymond. Raymond, myself, and Bob Summers scored the goals. We won the cup, and that's how Raymond and I basically started off as a strike partnership. And the rest is history, as I say. The next 2 seasons, we won the league. In fact, I think we won 3 trophies both seasons, and then obviously I got the chance to sign for Rangers, you know.
You had a lot of height up top there because Raymond wasn't a small lad either, big and tall, big and strong.
Yeah, but Raymond was completely different. You know, I mean, I heard Davie talking about the likes of Gordon McIntyre and Charlie Barber and people like that. Where Raymond had the edge over these guys, in my opinion, was his mobility. I mean, he made so fantastic runs, and Peter will back me up on this. I mean, he could take the pressure off our defence just by his sheer ability to run into the corners and take the ball and hold it up there. You know, he was a fantastic player to play with. I couldn't have asked for a better strike partner, you know.
Throw us a few names from that Cali team of that era then, Billy.
Well, obviously Peter. Sugar. Well, we picked off the best of the Clach team, basically. We picked up Billy McDonald, Sugar Kennedy, and Peter. We already, you know, Peter formed a partnership with Bob Summers, which was fruitful. Then obviously we had Andy Penman, but the weak link supposedly in our team was Alan Presley at left back, who at that stage was 36, coming on 37. What people forgot was he was such a fantastic footballer that, although you could get flying wingers against him, his experience got him through every time. And, you know, he picked up 2 league medals with us. He was an absolutely fantastic footballer. But people thought because Alan was stuck out in the left back position, he was the man to get at. But they couldn't be further from the truth.
He was hard as nails, Presley, wasn't he?
Oh, one of the hardest players ever. So I mean, going back to the 60s, my heroes in the 60s were Alan, Graham McInnes, Davie Johnson, and Chicky Allen. You know, these are the 4 guys that I can sort of remember watching as I grew up watching the Cali teams in the 60s. You know.
At that time, that team you mentioned Graham Bennett, Davie Johnson, Chicky Allen. As a goalkeeper, my hero at that time was Kenny McKenzie. Little guy, but what a goalkeeper.
Oh, fantastic goalkeeper. I mean, I didn't really play with Kenny. He came back to Cully Park. I signed 72. Kenny was probably only there a season, and he got edged out. Dave Christie, who just passed away recently, I think he played for all. In fact, I think he captained all 3 Inverness teams, Dave Christie, at one point.
Yes.
He had a lot of contacts down in the Perth juniors, and he brought up quite a few players from the Perth juniors, one being Chris Galloway as a goalkeeper. So he kind of edged Kenny out of the team, and Kenny was probably getting on at that point. So I played with him a few times in the reserve team, but never really that I can think of in the first team, you know. But as you say, for a small guy, he was a brilliant keeper.
You mentioned Davie Christie. I knew Davie Christie when I was a young lad because he was the player manager at Rothes. And his big claim to fame was his uncle was a guy called Scott Simon, who had something to do with a team that you later played for.
Well, there's another story there. My father, in the mid-60s, was trainer of Clach for a season. And it just so happened that coincided with the same season that Rangers got beat by Berwick. And I remember Clach were playing, I think it was the same night, I think it was a Saturday night, when I was down at the Clach game with my father. And when Dave Christie came in, he got some fearful stick from the rest of the players, particularly the Celtic supporting ones.
Yeah, great memories, Billy. Thank you for that.
Well,
Peter, you made it a full hand of Inverness clubs, 76, when you went to Cali, and straight in amongst the trophies.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind start. You know, I mean, it's a big move for me going from Merkinch to Cali. But at the time, it was the only move I wanted to make because Alec Name's the manager, and he'd been up me a couple of times before, and Alec's such a real gentleman he was, and an honest guy, and he persuaded me to come. So, and you're right, Martin. God, the first 2 years it was just bang, bang, bang. Games like we played in the Hindley Cup final at Clough Park, 5-4 we won after extra time. I think it was 5-4. One of the best games Cup finals I've ever seen in the Highland League, and it was just non-stop. And then the same season, I think we won the league. I think, if I'm Billy, will keep me right here, but I think that was a game where we had to beat Brora at home, and Peterhead, who were going to the league, had to beat Thistle up at Thistle Park. So we're both playing on the same day. So it didn't start off very well for us at the Cali Park, but we eventually won 6-3. So that was another won the league that year. But and Peterhead just missed it. But it's such a whirlwind start with the Cali, and I must say, as soon as I got there, I knew what a big club they were. I really were a big club. And I understood, even the Blue Blazers, they were such a target for other teams and all that sort of thing. But I looked upon it as a sort of something in their credit that every team loved to come and play the Cali, beat the Cali, hate the Cali, but all that sort of stuff. They were a professional club. They were really more professional than Thistle and the Clough when I was there. So it was a great time. I was very lucky, as I say, and Billy's mentioned players then. Penman was just fabulous, just pinpoint passes. Billy and Raymond didn't have to break their stride. Sometimes they just landed at their feet, and he sent them away. And Andy Penman, he's a midfield player, but what legs he had him. Calf muscles, like don't know what, and they were scarred at the back and scarred at the front. And he always wanted the ball at his feet. He says, they've got to come through me to get it. He used to say, and so if he's marked, he's still got the ball, but he must have got a few kicks over the years because he's scarred all over the legs. But fabulous player. And Presley, Billy mentioned Presley. I mean, I remember Burra Briggs, Alan was playing left back, and they got some young boy right wing that's playing against Alan. Never got any joy. He got taken off. Somebody else got the next sub came on. Another boy playing the right wing against Alan. He came off. He took him off and put another one. And Alan shouted in the dugout, "If you get any more in there," because they're putting people on just to take on Presley. And he was such a good player, such an accomplished player, and definitely one of the toughest men you can come across in the park.
And of course, Alan's son played in the Highland League, Dave.
Paul Presley,
Lossiemouth.
Keith.
Yep.
And Keith, yeah. Paul Presley.
Was it not Ryan?
Was it Ryan?
Ryan
Presley.
Ryan Presley.
Yep.
So
obviously kept the family tradition going. So I make it. You won 2 Highland League titles. You retained the Highland League Cup. You won the North of Scotland Cup in '77, and the Bell Scotch Cup, as Billy spoke about, 2 years in a trot. And you also won the Inverness Cup. Now, for the benefit of the viewers, because I have to be careful what I'm saying here, because I don't want to offend anybody, because whilst the Inverness Cup was in the periphery of the major competitions, it was certainly taken serious by the clubs in Inverness. Would that be right in saying?
It was a great wee trophy. I loved it. We loved it. I mean, the boys will tell you, usually we played midweek and under lights, which was new, which is still not that regular. We played under lights, and they were great competition. And you have to remember, Elgin City were in it, Ross County were in it, the 3 Inverness clubs, Nerd County. It was a real competitive, and sometimes there's a chance to give your pool players a game, but God, it was hard fought for, and some great games, fantastic games in the Inverness Cup, yeah.
Peter, thanks for that. We'll come back to your temporary departure from Telford Street next time.
Okay.
Over to you, Dave.
Davie, I'm just looking at your career, Davie. 22 seasons at Kings Mills, over 3 decades. But I'm going to go back to the 80s. Times were changing. I mean, you know, you were there, you were an ever-present, but, you know, the times were changing. The team was changing, team was evolving, Davie.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we'd gone away. It became, the club were starting to struggle financially at the time, and it became far more locally based than it previously had been. You know, Thistle had always a good, like the Cali, had always a good kind of, you know, band of players coming through from Aberdeen on a regular basis. And Thistle took the choice at one time to sort of cut right back on that. And one or two, you know, the better players left the club and went off. So we went more local. And then you know, when Rossi, you know, resigned and took over, Brian Black took over, and Brian sort of built on the start that Rossi had made when Mike Noble, John Bain, Charlie Christie joined the club. And that sort of made the difference, I think. Everybody, it certainly meant that, you know, everybody was training together, and it built a wee bit of a camaraderie there that was, you know, that was hard to beat in any sort of group of players I was involved at the Thistle Park.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and it just over the course of 2 seasons, we won everything that was available to us, although, you know, it was over 2 seasons. When we were defending league champions, we won the league cup, and the only time in my career, we beat Buckley 1-0 at the final in Elgin.
Mm-hmm.
So it just went on, you know, we built from that. But then, sort of, we were talking earlier about whether you felt under pressure to win things. I think it then gave us an expectation that Thistle were a better team and up there, and probably the standards that the Jock set and the committee set were a bit higher than they had been previously.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was hard to keep up and keep going with, you know, the sort of players we had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine. Went really well. It was a good sort of purple patch in Thistle's history, and probably there's still debates goes on as to whether the 71, 72 and 72, 73 league winning teams were better than the team that, you know, won the league in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will say it were, some people will say it wasn't, but we had Charlie Christie at his peak, you know, Charlie, who wasn't getting a regular game at the Cali Park, came up the hill, whereas, you know, he was basically a Jags supporter, because his dad had played for the club, and, you know, from then we profited. We had 2 years of Charlie at his best, and, you know, although it wasn't a one-man team, it made a difference, I think, to being able to be just competing and actually winning things.
As a Thistle legend, I'm going to ask you this one, Davie, your opinion. I've often been asked who the best all-round footballer I've seen in Highland League football in my day is. And there's no doubt the best player I've seen in Highland League football is Charlie Duncan. What's your thoughts on Charlie Duncan? He could do anything with a ball, really, in my opinion.
Well, you know, I've always said as well, Dave, that Charlie's, you know, one of the top 3 players I ever played with. See, as a young boy coming into the team, he was so supportive. Charlie wasn't afraid to take the ball in any situation. You know, he wanted the ball from you. He made himself available. He encouraged you to keep going. And I think that showed in the way, you know, he did with Brock over the years and bringing through young players as well. You could understand that. His enthusiasm and the knowledge of the game was great. But Charlie had just about everything, you know. He could tackle, he could shoot, sometimes he was a wee bit too clever. You didn't want to be a goal up at Peterhead with 5 minutes to go and Charlie getting the ball in the edge of our box, because Charlie would try to rub it into Peterhead and dribble out of the box. And I think on more than one occasion he was caught doing it, you know. But a great character, and I'm still in touch with Charlie fairly regularly, and he's certainly a big help to me in my career.
And this is where I come in with that wee story we spoke about earlier. It goes back to your time at Forest Mechanics, and you were the manager of Forest. And I've spoken about this story before, Davie. The Forest bus left, and they left the manager and the chairman, and who was the other one? Secretary?
The secretary, yeah.
At Fraserman. You weren't all in Charlie's wee office having a vodka, were you? Or were you?
No, I was in Charlie's wee office. The other two were in the Fraserburgh Social Club at the time, I think. I was in Charlie's office. By the time I got down to the social club, the bus had already, it was loaded and ready to go, but the chairman insisted on buying me a pint. So by the time we then went out, the bus had gone, and there was a reporter from, I think, one of the local radio stations at the time was available, who happened to be heading in the same direction. So 3 of us crammed into his car, chased the bus along the A95, is it?
A98.
In 1998, as far as Macduff, I think. Whereas we drew in at Macduff, the Forest bus was leaving Macduff and carrying on after having stopped for chips. So we managed to flag the bus down and got on, but we didn't get our chips up there either. So it's always been a story. You should never leave you know, Peter was saying earlier, one of the secrets of being a manager is to keep in or stay with the chairman and the secretary, and nothing will ever go wrong. Well, I think I was led astray initially by Mr. Duncan that day, but I think the chairman and the then secretary had a bit of answer for as well. But thanks to you, Dave, we managed to get back to Forest anyway.
That's all what Highland League football's all about, Davie, isn't it?
Well, you know, there's many a good cut. You miss the whole social club type sort of atmosphere as well. You used to meet players from the opposing team in their social club at the end of the game, you know, and just for the crack, you know, you made friendships from that. There was nothing carried over off the pitch afterwards. You know, it would be good to go back out now and visit some of these clubs and get some of the old players in. I know we've talked, the 3 of us that are on here tonight have talked about doing things like this in the past. I think the Cali boys did go on a trip, was it last season or the season before they went on a trip down to Rothes, I think, boys, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so, you know, things like that are great and should be encouraged. I think I'm sure there'll be Highland League clubs out there that would be more than happy to host a small gathering of ex-players.
I would think so. I would think so.
You know, just to go and meet up again. You know, Facebook's a great thing, or well, it is a great thing once if you can control its usage, to an example. But certainly I've managed to make contact with people there that you know, I played against over the years and played with over the years that I haven't spoken to for a number of years, and you know, it would be good to catch up with them in a more, you know, when this current, you know, pandemics passed as well, to meet up with them in more a face-to-face situation.
In my last couple of visits to Harlaw Park at Inverurie, at the top end, there's a trio of former greats all congregate. Bob Summers, Kevin Mann, Wilson Robertson.
That's right. Yeah.
Great crack with them when I'm having a blether with them. They're just wonderful characters. And Highland football was full of characters, and most of them a lot of them went to train from Aberdeen to Inverness and then back in the train to Aberdeen. Cali had a lot of players went to train, Thistle had, and I'm sure Clark did as well. It must have been a really busy train.
Yeah, it would have been. I know. I remember us coming off the park, Billy, for Cali. We're shaking hands and talking to players as they come off the park and this and that. And as soon as you walk in the dressing door, he's getting dressed. He's been in Bath and he's dried and he's getting dressed. So because he's rushing to the social club so he can get as many drinks as he can before the 10 to 6 train, I think it is. But you're right, and they all met up there and they had their carry-outs and from Inverness all the way right through, you know, past the Albion, past Keith, all the way back to Aberdeen. So they must have some nights up, boys.
And how? Back to you, Martin.
Before I come to you, Billy, I'll just touch on Charlie Duncan. Obviously has got form for getting people in trouble post-match, because I can remember refereeing Wick Academy and Fraserburgh up at Wick. It was a holiday weekend, so I took my wife and the kids, and my sister-in-law came along as well to keep them company during the day. Went and booked in the hotel just across the road from, is it the Legion in the corner? And there's a Francis Street Club or something.
Yes.
You went upstairs, and I'd said to my wife, I says, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. After the game, I'll take my 2 linesmen back for a drink, just a complimentary drink, and then I'll come across, I'll take you out for dinner, book a table for the 2 of us. Sister can look after the kids, and we'll have a nice evening. So I'm in the St. Francis Club up the stairs, having a pint, which was unusual because I was normally driving. And Charlie Duncan approaches the bar and says, you're drinking beer. And I says, oh, I do drink. I says, I just didn't normally kind of have a drink because I'm driving. And I says, but I'm staying the weekend. He says, oh, that's a coincidence. So are we. Sunday morning, I wakes up in our room by myself, and I've still got the blazer and the brogues on. Needless to say, there was no dinner. And it was a rather quiet Sunday and Monday travelling back down the road to Speyside, I can assure you. But it was just as well I had the sister-in-law with us, or I might have been getting divorced, that's for sure. And I put that down entirely to Charlie. Billy, we got off a beaten track here. It's the late 70s, and suddenly there's interest from you from Ibrox.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it because in April I'd gone down to Derby County on a week's trial. Tommy Doherty was actually the manager at the time, and you know, you're talking about the Blaze pitches. You should have seen the baseball ground. A Blaze pitch would have been a great improvement on the baseball ground pitch. But I had a week's trial down there, and they wanted me to come back down in the summertime. But we played a pre-season friendly against Rangers, and John Gregg made his move, and I signed thereafter. We played Rangers, who were the treble holders. They beat us 6-3, scored a couple of goals. As I say, I signed thereafter, and whirlwind stuff. It was after that.
So tell the viewers, who were your teammates at Ibrox at that time?
Well, I remember my debut, well, not my full debut, but my debut was in a tournament called the Tennant Caledonian, which was 4 clubs. And at the time, from memory, I think it was ourselves, Hearts, Southampton, and West Bromwich Albion. That was the 4 teams that were in it that year. And I remember coming down on the train, put in the hotel, and then taking to Ibrox, in to meet the players. I mean, it was a who's who, you know. It was Peter McCloy, Stuart Kennedy, Sandy Jardine, Colin Jackson, Derek Johnson, Tom Forsyth, Alec Forsyth, Alec Miller, Tommy McLean, Bobby Russell, Gordon Smith, Derek Parlin. You know,
wow.
You can reel them off. You know, we were all legends. And here was me, and I didn't even own a suit, you know, that it was suitable to go. So I remember going to buy a suit in Burton's, and it didn't fit me properly, but I thought, oh, it'll do. And I remember getting introduced to all these players, and I just had this impression that they were all sizing me up and down in this ill-fitting suit that I'd bought, you know. But yeah, rather nervous.
Yep. So when did you make your full debut?
Made a full debut in the first game of the season against Hibs. Derek Johnson, who the previous season had scored goals for fun, I mean 40-odd goals, I believe, he was playing at the back with Tom Forsyth, and I was pushed up front with, in fact, Derek Parlin was dropped, I believe, which was unusual. I was playing up front with Gordon Smith, so played at Easter Road, 0-0 game, and that was my debut. I got on fine, actually, and then the following week, it was a free week, so there was a friendly, a reserve friendly at Stirling Albion of all places. So we go to Stirling Albion, so they gave me a game, get a full game in. So I was playing up front with John Robertson's brother Chris, who was at Ibrox at the time. So first half, we're 3-0 up at half time. I scored 2 and Chris had scored 1. So came in. Joe Mason was I don't know if you remember Joe Mason. He was Greg's assistant manager. He came from Morton, I believe, and he played for Rangers and when they won the league to stop Celtic winning 10-0. I came in, we were sitting there. So Joe Mason starts going through all the players, and he didn't leave any of them with a name. He was just getting ripped into them. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'm fine, I've scored 2. He's not going to say anything to me. Well, wrong idea. He just didn't leave me with a name. And he said, you know, I was the laziest player you ever seen. Why Mr. Gregg had decided to sign me, he just couldn't understand it because, you know, I had no chance of making it. Of course, I was sitting there just totally gobsmacked, you know. So after the game, I'm thinking, what's all that about? You know, I mean, one of the guys said to me, they're just testing out your character, which I'd never come across anything like this in my life, you know. But there it was.
Yep. And they had quite a successful season, League Cup final.
We won the League Cup. We actually won the Scottish Cup as well. We lost the league to Celtic in the last game of the season when Celtic beat us 4-2. I was 14th man that night, and that was one of the I don't know, the atmosphere there, it was poisonous that night. You know, it was really was. It was. I found out what Old Firm atmospheres were about that night. I mean, but fair play to Celtic. You know, they were superb that night. They were down to 10 men and they beat us 4-2.
Did you play in any Old Firm games, Billy? Did you play in
I played the first game of the season at Parkhead. We got beat 1-0. Roddy McDonald, who played for Brora, he's from Brora, he scored the winning goal. Yeah.
I've got to ask, you may not necessarily tell me, but there was that famous incident in the League Cup final when the opposing side finished a man short.
Well, opposing
Can you
side,
tell us your recollections? Because the TV cameras didn't quite catch what happened.
They certainly wouldn't have caught. If the TV cameras were so many of them as there are today, you know, Doug would have been off before, because we literally kicked off. I kicked off, strolled up the middle of the park to make my Doug about 40 yards out, 35 yards out, and he just landed one on me, punched me. I just stood there. I thought, what the hell's going on here? But, you know, the game went on, and as I say, he gets sent off later on, and I'm pretty certain Derek Johnson dived and got him sent off. But to me, it was poetic justice at the time. But to be honest, right, I think that was Aberdeen's first cup final for a number of seasons, and they had a reasonably young team. It was Fergie's first season there. I think that Doug had been told, right, look, they've got a young centre forward. He's never played in a cup final before. Sort him out. But Doug took it to heart. He did sort me out.
Yep. Now, I've got to ask, it came up in the show the other week, and you appreciate the fact you got in touch with us to put it right, but you have a very unusual record at Rangers between the sticks. Can you enlighten the viewers?
Yeah. That same season, at the end of the season, we were playing Aberdeen in the Reserve League Cup final at Pittodrie, and my old teammate from Jordan Hill was a guy called Ronnie Lowry. He was a goalkeeper. He played a number of seasons at lower level, and he was at Ibrox with me, but he never really played, you know, first team level. But he played a number of seasons for Alloa, notably. But Ronnie was our goalkeeper. In the first 2 minutes of the game, he get injured. His finger got dislocated, and his ring was stuck, you know, and it was, the whole thing was, so he had to come off. So I went in goals 2 minutes into the game, and I was doing absolutely fine. 0-0 half time, into second half, penalty kick to Aberdeen. Who's taking the kick? King Joey. So King Joey, he absolutely blasted the ball, but it was quite close to me, so I managed to save it. The rebound went straight back to him, and he struck it again. I blocked it again, and it rebounded to the 18-yard line where John McMaster stroked it home. But that's my claim to fame as a goalkeeper. I saved a Joe Harper penalty.
Brilliant. There's not many folk can say that, Billy, that's for sure. And of course, the famous run in the European Cup that season as well. Some big games. I don't think you played in the second leg at Ibrox. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you played in the first leg at Cologne?
No, I ran that year. We played Juventus the first round of the cup, and we won 2-1. And they had virtually the Italian World Cup squad playing for them. We beat them 2-1. Next round we played PSV Eindhoven, drew 0-0 at Ibrox, but beat them 3-2 over there. Bobby Russell getting the winning goal. So we're in the quarter final. I came on as sub over at Cologne, last 20 minutes, and then over here I think Parley might have been injured. So I started the game. Okay. Infamous game for me. They call it Eau de Cologne, the number of sitters I missed apparently. Although I've actually seen the game on a French YouTube channel since, and I was looking at it, and they weren't that bad, the misses. Bad enough, but not that bad. I've always been castigated for missing that one, you know. But we lost 2-1 in aggregate. And
was there an Englishman playing for Cologne at that time? I remember. Was there?
Yeah, Tony Woodcock.
Tony Woodcock, of course.
And I think Rainer Bonhoff was their midfield player at the time as well.
Wow.
But they had a good team. They had a very good team.
Yeah. So
fantastic experience for me. Fantastic
Wonderful
experience for me.
So 2 seasons at Ibrox, and then you moved down south.
Yeah, moved to Wigan. Ian McNeil, who Peter mentioned earlier on, was manager of Wigan at the time. And a bit like you, Dave, when Harry Kaprick got sacked, poor Ian McNeil got sacked after I was only there about 4 weeks. I don't think I played another game after that. You know, if face didn't fit.
Was that the
Long,
first season? Was that the first
Yeah,
season
only
in
one.
the Scottish League? The English
Yeah.
League?
Yeah, that sorry, no, that was our second season.
Okay.
I think that was our second season. I mean, there's about 7 or 8 Scots playing for them. One of them, Jim Oliver, who all the guys will know very well here. He was playing, and I shared a flat with Jim. I can't say that was.
You've got my commiserations. That would have been an experience. And yeah,
Well,
we can't ask any questions. I can stop you there.
I can tell you there are no stories I could tell you. The only thing I could say is that a Sunday, Wigan Rugby League Club Central Park was across the road from our flat, so you could actually drink there legally before the game on a Sunday. So we used to go across there with Jim and 2 or 3 other guys, and it wasn't anything unusual to roll back across the flat at midnight. It was just.
And there were big clubs in the 4th Division at that time, yeah?
I can't really recall that being the case, you know.
No, I think Blackburn were certainly. In the
No, I
4th
don't
Division.
think so. No.
No.
But Wigan, they're the
I have
biggest.
to have a word with my researcher. He's shocking.
Possibly. Wigan, they're the biggest crowds of anyone in the 4th Division at the time. They were getting between 5,000 and 8,000 people at a game, you know, which was a big crowd for 4th Division football. But as I say, when Larry Lloyd took over, you know, I just no chance of getting a game.
Fascinating stuff, Billy. We'll come back to your return back north later on. Dave, over to you.
You mentioned Ian McNeil there, Billy, before we move on. He was a lovely man, and his son Ian McNeil follows this programme and he watches every episode. So a big shout out to Ian McNeil Jr. But his dad was a lovely man.
Ian was a superb guy, you know. I mean, the thing I thought about him, you know, he was too nice to be a manager. You know, at that level, you know, when I went down there, you know, you're used to a lot at Ibrox, you know, you're used to get like shouted out and all sorts of things. But Ian was he was a gentleman, you know. And I think that the dog eat dog nature of English football at that stage maybe just didn't suit him, you know. He liked footballers. One other player that actually played there when I was there was George Urquhart, who played for Ross County. He was another hard man as well. He was a very good footballer too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at Ian McNeil's funeral 2-3 years ago, and a very moving eulogy by a former Scotland and Derby County player, Bruce Reich. He was a close friend of Ian McNeil's, and he gave a wonderful eulogy on the late Ian McNeil. And one of your ex-teammates I met 2-3 years ago as well, Billy. I was down, I had the pleasure of playing around at Turnberry, and I went on to the first team, and I met the starter at Turnberry, and I thought, God, you look familiar. And he says, you're looking at me as if you recognise me. Do you know who I am? And I says, I've got exactly who you are. You're the Girvan Lighthouse. You're Peter McCloy. He's huge.
Yeah, Peter was a really nice guy. Good goalkeeper as well. I think he'll be remembered, though, for that incident in the Scottish Cup final.
Am I right?
Wonderful stuff. Peter,
Yes, Dave.
you went for one season only. You left the capital of the Highlands and you went to Victoria Park to join Ross County.
Yeah, we had manager Carly and Alec Main and ourselves. I wanted to sign a longer contract, and Alec was quite happy with that. But for some reason, the committee at the time didn't agree with Alec. There was a wee bit of aggro going on with Alec. I think some of the committee didn't recognise Alec because he wasn't a well-known footballer, or what you call that. So he didn't get the respect of his area, even though he put so many trophies on their sideboard. But so Alec didn't get that, so Alec resigned. And then Carly actually came to me that night and said that we can agree a contract with you. And I said, no, I can't do that. The man's resigned because of me. So Ross County came up, were in for me. They're in for me a couple of years beforehand. So, and John Allison was there, Alan McLaren, Robbie Giles, all my Clark teammates. So I thought it was a place to go. So I went there for a year. It didn't really work out at all. Sandy Wallace convinced me to go there as well. But Jack Lorney was the manager. He used to play up front, Jack. He was manager for a while, lovely guy, but he wasn't in good health. So Sammy Wilson came in then. Sammy was a fantastic coach. Fantastic coach. I don't say a better coach. I've seen a better coach, but not a manager. And he just didn't really get the winning mentality that some of us boys wanted. I'm very luckily I was quite fortunate. And listen, I must say, Ross County were a good club, looked after you, a very friendly club, nice crowd. No complaints about them at all. But I wasn't settling there at all. So after Alec got back into the county and they took him back as manager, and the first thing he did was come back for me, which is great. So I was delighted to go back there. The Carly, Billy had come back, Big Raymond had come back. So got us all back together again, and we just carried on again from where we left off really after leaving the league county.
That Cali team won 3 league and qualifying cup doubles and three in a row. It was a great time. It
was a great time. It's quite amazing how we actually you don't think at the time, but they just start up as you go along, and it's a fantastic record to have. We're obviously delighted to have it. We also went through one that season undefeated, which is not easy to do. I mean, I know Broda did it to the League there lately, but there wasn't the big clubs in then. But you know, no disrespect to Broda, they can only play what's in front of them. But we went through the whole season undefeated, and that was great to get. And I remember a few years later, Billy will remember this. Thistle were I think it was the season they won the league. They were close to going undefeated, and their last game was at Peterhead. And Billy and I at the time, it was close season in the season. We'd finished Cali, and Billy and I were in Burghead. We bought a caravan together years ago when we were going through weekends with our family and kids and that. We had such, you can imagine, mad times. But we that day Peterhead, I think they won 2. They beat Thistle 2-0, and we were trying to find out the score. And I think we got on the radio eventually. And good old Gary Loch, boy, did he get toasted that night? Because he scored. I don't know if he scored both goals, but did he? He certainly scored one anyway. But the Bacardi and the dart round was opened very early at 5 o'clock on that Saturday night because we were cheering Gary Loch. No disrespect to Davie, of course, but you know, we obviously wanted to keep going through the league undefeated ourselves.
I bet you some great parties in that caravan, you two.
It was great parties. I really can't tell you these parties, but yeah, they were great parties. There was Sandy Honest and Eastwood Forest. His wife and family used to come with us, so it's a Ken birther. There was and there was 10 of us there, and it was just crazy nights, but such a good laugh, and it was great. So that was the season. That 3 years in a row was terrific to do that, you know. And we such good players, Dave. I think over the years, the dressing room can manage the team. You know, make it easier for the manager when the players take over the dressing room. You know, they really can do that. And we had some really good boys that did that, you know, pros like Billy, Big Ray, myself, Bob Summers, fantastic. You know, Bob Summers took the Aberdeen boys, Wilson, Kevin, Davie Gibson, up and back and forth every week in his car. Bob, just an absolute stalwart, good player, very, very good player, but an absolute stalwart of a guy. And Carly were really lucky to get him. We had nothing to worry about with the Aberdeen boys. Bob just shepherded them all. He was like a dad to them all. And so, as I say, all the players there were very lucky to have a team. You really have to have real discipline and commitment and proper professionals to go 3 years and get to win the league. You know, Keith did it as well. They had a top side when they did it as well, top players too. So, yeah, that's what I needed and that's what it took.
Yeah. You're professional on the pitch, but I take it off the pitch that Carly was equally professional. Was Jimmy Faulkner there at that time, Peter?
Jimmy Faulkner, yeah. Jimmy was the secretary then, yeah. Jimmy Ivan, good lad, great lad, Jimmy. He was obviously Carly Thistle for many years till he retired last year, was it? Mm-hmm. But Jimmy, yeah, great secretary. And they all had a great. One thing I used to love about the Carly and the Highland League was you're playing and you could hear the opposing committees shout at each other in the stand, you know. So you just heard loud voices all the time. Oh, be quiet, you shut. Or you call the ref a homer if he was playing for the away team. He came through in the team bus, that sort of thing. And you heard all that stuff. You playing. It was so funny, you know. The Highland League.
Happy days indeed, Peter. Thank you for that.
Okay, Dave.
Davie, Kingsmills in the 90s, wasn't the glory days any longer. It was troubled times financially. There was a wee bit of worry about the future. But suddenly you bring in a celebrity manager.
Well, it came out of the blue a bit, Martin. It was certainly different for a spell. And it worked to an extent. You know, we went on a couple of fairly long unbeaten runs with them, but it was just talking about man management and that. You know, you had a way with people that was just, you know, fantastic.
We do, of course, for the viewers' benefit, refer to Mr. Jim Leishman, Esquire.
Esquire, yeah. The Provost of Fife.
Yes, indeed. Well, he is.
So, you know, he sort of gave the place a lift and brought a bit, you know, there was a bit of professionalism involved in it, you know, and it got down to the stage where, you know, you did, before, if we were going an away game, you just about had anything you wanted to eat for lunch, say going to Peterhead or something like that. But he changed it a bit. I can remember the first trip to Peterhead, after he took over, we stopped in, I think, Station Hotel Portsoy for our pre-match meal, and everything was with beans. It was fish with beans, fried chicken with beans, whatever. We're sitting in the dressing room, the old recreation park before the game started. You can imagine what like the atmosphere was in the dressing room.
Thick.
And it was getting that bad that he suddenly burst into always look on the bright side of life. So we're sitting in the dressing room at Peterhead, saying always look on the bright side of life. Well, onto the park, and we're 4-0 up by half time. It worked. I think we won the game 4-1. But you know, he got boys to play for him. You know, he took in a couple of boys from the south as well who were really good players, including Billy Abercrombie, who had captained St Mirren to the Scottish Cup just 2 or 3 years previous to that.
Yeah.
Billy Spence, Willie Callahan, and 1 or 2 others, you know, and we were a decent team, Leishman. But at the end of the day, I think the call of the old Scottish League came calling. Montrose were in touch with him, so he ended up taking the job back down there. I think probably as well the travel was getting a bit onerous for him as well. He brought his own driver because Mr. Leishman, following a midweek game in Inverness, managed to lose his licence as well. So he needed a driver to get him up and down the road. So you know, it was certainly an experience working with him, and you know, he's a big-hearted guy with, you know, great company and things like that. But you know, it was certainly a different sort of 10-month period, whatever years period in Thistle's history. That's for sure. Yeah.
And then along comes the merger, and it was difficult times.
Well, I think, you know, at the time I wasn't really for it. You saw it as being a bit of a takeover, and I think to some extent, eventually that's what happened. But I think the thing that sort of sticks in a lot of people's craw now is the fact that Thistle actually owned the ground at the time, and they weren't aware that they owned the ground at the time. They thought their own ground was owned by the Church of Scotland. So, and that would have meant, had they known that they owned the ground, it would have meant there was more money going in, you know, being available to the club in terms of, you know, even using it as, you know, guarantees against loans and things like that. Because my understanding is if the merger hadn't happened, it's unlikely Thistle would have survived more than another couple of years on as things were at that time. Yeah. But, you know, in terms of it, whether it was good for football in Inverness, there's no doubt that the merger, you know, has worked to that extent, because who could have foreseen, you know, an Inverness team playing in the Premier League within 6 or 7 years of going into the Scottish leagues and winning the Scottish Cup and playing in Europe. You know, it's just, there's still kind of, and this is where I could get on my high horse a wee bit. You know, I think there still is a bit of a lack of engagement of the support within Inverness going to support the club. And I think
Charlie Christie, Charlie Christie touched on it the other week. Things were not good at one point. You know, quite a lot of fans didn't embrace the merger at all.
No, I think, you know, there was problems with, you know, the Cali support in particular. You know, mounted sort of fairly large-scale protests about it. The Thistle sort of argument against it was sort of led by somebody who ended up taking, you know, trying to get court injunctions in place to stop the merger going ahead. You know, there were still some supporters that were from both sides of the fence will not support, you know, the new club. or go to the games. But you know, it's now, you know, it's 25 years past, and you know, things move on. I think for the sake of football in this part of the world, it's proved to be a good move. So, you know, hopefully they'll get behind them. But who knows in the current climate what the future holds for clubs? You know, it's going to be a very, very tough period of time. You know, you'll know that, Peter Head, Martin. And
Yep.
it'll be as well. You know, it's tough times ahead, and who knows when we'll get back to football.
That's for sure.
And I think, you know, sitting tonight for a short time before we come on here, watching games on the television with, you know, with no crowds in place or anything, just devoid of atmosphere, and it's like watching a training game. I think, you know, they're not particularly enjoyable. So, you know, let's hope we can get back to some sort of normality quite quickly.
That's right. I mean, we're fortunate enough, Dave, to say that we'll have got a good following of younger viewers who are not au fait with the history. They know there's been a merger, but they've no concept of, you know, what happened behind the scenes. And it's really important, I think, for us to get a feel from, because only people that can tell this story are people from Inverness. And you know, you lived and you worked and you played for the clubs. And whilst we can all, you know, applaud the end result, fully appreciate the difficult times you guys went through. And of course, your playing career ended with Inverness Thistle just before the merger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I played right through. Probably, Mark, I would have thought that I maybe would have stopped playing the season before, but it became painfully obvious there was going to be one season left. So, you know, the late Henrik Marley sort of persuaded me to carry on for another year just to see that out. And you know, I was glad I did in the end. So, you know, the final day at Thistle Park against Lossiemouth was, you know, a really terrible atmosphere. I think it was, you know, you could feel, without trying to be too melodramatic about it, but it was like being at a funeral, you know. It was, you know, for a lot of us that had been there a while, you know, and there was, you know, boys like Kevin Sweeney, who were Thistle born and bred, you know, really took it quite difficult and took it hard, and it really wasn't, there wasn't a nice atmosphere about the place at all. And then, you know, just within a number of days, Sam Brightspark decided to set the stand on fire as well. So that sort of memory was destroyed quickly as well, you know. So it's, you know, so there was nothing much left. But the park sat there for a year and a bit after that before any development took place, and you know, it was just overgrown. And you see these pictures of, you know, like maybe Cathkin Park as it was at one time, you know, that they now turned into a bit of a public area in Glasgow. But Cathkin Park, I remember visiting it once, it was totally overgrown like that, and it just wasn't a nice feeling at all. Yeah.
Well, Davie, we really appreciate you sharing that with us, Davie, really do. And we also appreciate the fact that you did decide to play that extra year, and you were a fantastic servant to Inverness Thistle. On behalf of fans like me, we applaud you for doing that, because the loyalty for one man to play for one club for over 20 years, it doesn't happen all that often. So hats off to you, Davie.
Well, thanks for that.
Dave.
Yeah, I echo Martin's thoughts, Davie. You were a super centre half, and a very clean centre half. I don't remember you getting booked or sent off that many times.
Well, I got my share of bookings, Dave. I was never sent off.
I thought that.
I was
Davie,
never sent off, and I was never suspended.
Martin's going to say something.
Well, what I was going to say is, I don't think in my time we never had a crossword until you took over in the dugout, and I think that was probably more from frustration because you couldn't be on the pitch. Would that be fair to say?
I think all managers are frustrated like that.
Yeah. Good
No,
stuff.
I was maybe fortunate, you know. Maybe as I got older, referees felt a wee bit sorry for me, you know.
No.
Billy, I'm going to take you back to those pre-merger days and go to the same place as we did with Peter a few minutes ago. That 3 in a row, qualifying cup winners and the league title winners, it was some Carly side.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the team had evolved from when I left. We still had the same core of good players, though. I mean, with Billy McDonald in goals, with Peter and Bob, Roddy Davison. We'd replaced Presley with Kevin Mann, who was an absolute super player. And with Wilson Robertson up front, who replaced Gordie Fife. So we still had an excellent pool of players, and obviously myself and Raymond up front. And we just dovetailed well, and it was like, you just fell straight back into it. And I have to say that, the Keith side of that era were a fantastic team as well, and pushed us all the way that season. But, we managed to win the league that first season, and we just went from there. And we were picking up, other trophies as well. I think we won 3 trophies that first year. And, well, as I say, we did the qualifying cup and league double for 3 years in a row, which I don't think anyone else has ever done. Mm-hmm. So, it was a fantastic experience.
Mm-hmm. Was Martin Lyle in midfield at the time?
Martin Lyle, he was only 19 at the time. I mean, he was just a powerhouse in the middle of the park. I mean, that's the thing. You had to have different types of players. We had John Dock, who was our playmaker, but we had Martin Lyle alongside him, who did all the work, and, a lot more skillful than people give him credit for. And, as I say, you need different types of players. As Peter said earlier, you've got to have experience, you've got to have youth, you've got everything in your club. We're all winners. That was the other side, but we all wanted to win. Mm-hmm. And Roddy Davison was, alongside Davie there, he's probably played more games than anyone else in the Highland League, and he was a fantastic player for us as well.
Mm-hmm. Another man who probably was just a wee bit too early for him, but he was a lovely, lovely man, as we all know, the late, great Alan Hercher. Have you any Hercher stories?
Well, I mean, Alan signed, I think Peter signed him as manager. Were we right there, Peter? Yeah. I mean, the season that Alan left to go to Australia, I think he scored something like 25 goals before Christmas.
26 goals by November, that's right, yeah.
And he left to go to Australia, and that's from a midfield player. I mean, he was like John Wark. If you recall John Wark playing for Ipswich and teams like that, he was one of these players as a midfield player. He made runs beyond the forward, and of course Raymond had retired by that time, and we kind of evolved our shape a bit. Where I was playing up front on my own, but we had Hershey coming through deep from midfield, and it seemed to work as well. I used to get into wee sort of competitions with him. How many goals did he score? How many goals did I score? That kept me going as well, because I was getting to the veteran stage by that point too. Yeah, but I mean, absolute what a loss to Highland League football Hershey was. I mean, a really lovely guy, and one of our best signings, undoubtedly so.
He was a lovely, lovely man. He was a warm man, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. My son Ewan was working over in New York about 4 years ago for a year, and I think we were over visiting him at Christmas time. Just so happened Hershey was over with his wife, visiting his wife's brother over in New York. We met up a couple of times over there. We had some fantastic nights. In fact, one night we were down in a place called Hell's Kitchen, an area of New York, and we were in a restaurant there. So there were about 8 or 9 of us around this table. And towards the end of the night, Hershey and I started singing old Cali songs. I mean, the rest of the place must be wondering what the hell's going on here. We were saying, we're the Cali all the way, It was just in fact, as a tribute to Hershey, his wife asked for me to see if I can get, wee messages put on a card for his funeral, So my message was 2016, Hell's Kitchen, Cali all the way. That was the way I put it, It was he's such a loss.
Yeah. Another player you mentioned, Wilson Robertson. By God, was he quick?
Very quick. I mean, he was such an outball for us. I mean, if we were under pressure, you could stick a ball into the left-hand corner and Wilson was on it like a flash. I mean, we were so fortunate to get Wilson and Kevin from Aberdeen, and as Peter said, Bob looked after them so well and kept them on the straight and narrow, because they were a wee bit harum-scarum when they were young, but really great players for Cali.
Another one you mentioned, Kevin Mann. Now, I remember Kevin. He was quick as well. He was. I would imagine maybe the first overlapping fullbacks I used to see, because he could get up and down. He had a great engine, Kevin.
Yeah, a great engine. Yeah, great engine. I think he came to us actually as a midfield player, but we adapted him into the left back position. He made it his own for fully 10 seasons. You know, he was a really good player, Kevin. As I say, both him and Wilson, I think both came from Dundee. Bob's father was a Dundee scout, and it was Bob's father that actually got the pair of them to come to Cally Park, and you know, we were really fortunate to get the pair of them. You know.
Yeah. Well, that three are joined at the hip, as I say, every time I'm at Locos, they're there at the game. Billy, thank you for that.
Go on, Dave.
Gents, I'm conscious of time, but we are going to finish. But I'm going to come to Peter now. Peter, we've got to touch on the fact that you then spent a spell in the late 80s with Cally, combining a number of roles: player, manager, commercial manager. Were you groundsman, ticket seller as well?
Okay, well out for the groundsman. Tommy Cummings.
And there is a legendary name as well, because the match officials were frightened of Tommy Cummings.
Tommy would be quite happy if I did the park and he run the team. But no, it's a strange time. Well, the last year we won the double, Raymond was manager then, and he only lasted a year, which was quite surprising. We were quite surprised that he just lasted a year, and I don't know, we just didn't fancy it. He wanted to do, because he came back playing later on and for a couple of teams. But I know he was his assistant, so I don't know if it was automatic or not, but they offered me the job, and of course I said yes, and I was assistant manager. And then the commercial manager job was there too. Willie Hunter had left by then, and I applied for that job, and I got that as well. So it worked fine. It wasn't easy to do to start off with, because you're looking after the money at the one hand, because you're trying to make money, but you're also, as a football manager, you're wanting the money. But then you end up being very careful with the money, even the football money. So it's, from a football point of view, it might be a bit on the downside. But no, we did very well on the commercial. I really enjoyed it. I knew a lot of people, which helped. They knew me. We started the Centenary Club, which was a big thing at the time, the Cally Centenary Club.
I remember that, yeah.
We had 3,000 members. We actually went down to Bolton Wanderers to meet to get the idea from them. Met not Lofthouse, great England centre forward. They came up to MLS, and Nat came up as well, and they launched it for us, and we ended up with a good number to sign on that night. We had a big public meeting, and then after that, I just grew and grew and grew, and it still is a good earner for the Cally Thistle, you know. So that was the biggest thing, the commercial side. But it wasn't easy doing the two of them together, no. But it was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for about 6 years, I think.
Yep. And making the transition from player to manager, did you find that difficult, or did the players find it difficult?
Oh, no, I found it terrible. I just struggled, because I was trying to be myself on the park when I was off the park, and I can't shout at referees in the park as the way I did on the park. So I was getting in more trouble that way as well. But no, I did find it difficult. It's fine. I think it's like Raymond or Billy or I'm not saying I'm that sort of level, but it's sometimes hard to replace yourself, you know. And if you've been there a long time and left your impression on your team, same as Davie. If Davie left Thistle, they'd have a hard job replacing a 22 years man of service, a fantastic centre half, Billy as well. And that's what I found difficult doing. And we didn't do it, but we did really well over the years. I mean, Thistle had a good side. When I became manager, they started to come out a good side, and so a difficult team to play against. But we did all right. Won the league. I'm quite happy to be the last Cally manager to win the league. Won the league on the qualifying double. So quite happy to still have that. But it was difficult, yeah. But enjoyed it. You know, can't complain at all. As you know, Martin, you know, you're into football. Even if you're a commercial manager, you're still into football. You're into the football here. So I was in about that, and obviously later with Clark as well. I did that afterwards as well, in about the football game. So it's full time, really. Can't really ask for more if you're man in football. You're in a full time spot in a football club. It's great, you know.
Yep. Well, I had to wait till I was 52 before I got my first full time job. So that gives you an idea how difficult it's to get in. Thanks for sharing that with us, Peter. Dave?
Davie, you look as if you're at McKessick Park before we got our new floodlights. It's awful dark in your house.
Put your light on, Dave. Are you in the shed?
No money in the meter.
Davie, after you hung up your boots, you had a spell coaching with the newly formed Cali Thistle, and then of course you went into management with Forest and finished up at Fort William. Did you enjoy football management, or were you a frustrated footballer that wanted to kick every ball?
Well, I was a frustrated footballer. I think if you played the game for any length of time, Dave, you're always going to be frustrated and you kind of play. But I enjoyed it. You know, there were different jobs, there were different challenges. When involved with Cali Thistle, it was mainly in the young, with the youngsters and with the reserve team. And really, when I took the job on, there was hardly a pool of players to, we were competing in the North Cali League, and we put myself and Mike Fridge in to give me a hand with it, to take in some players there to get a team on the park, sort of young boys that had been either in the Thistle reserve team or in the Cali reserve team, and one or two others that had sort of just drifted out of football altogether. So it was a different challenge, especially on Friday nights when you found out who you had for the Saturday. Some of the members of a first team squad would be come down to yourself, and you ended up having to play them in front of maybe one of the young boys that had done well for you the previous week. So, it was sort of a challenge. Forest was, it was actually Pelly that persuaded me to take the Forest job. I hammed and hawed about it for a wee while, and Pelly was manager at Cali Thistle at the time, and he says, well, they're a great club, Davie, go and, give it a go, because you'll regret it if you don't give it a go. And I did enjoy it. They're a great club through it for us. They're really well ran, the supporters are great, really enjoyed my time there. But at the end of the day, you have to be a wee bit more successful than I managed to be. So, moved on from that and on to other things. So.
Have you got a Pelly story you could share?
Most managers are frustrated players.
Have you got a Pelly story you could share with us, Davie? There's one or two stories about Pell.
Well, no, I don't think so. I wouldn't. I don't really think. My involvement when Pelly was with Cali Thistle was, purely with the second team and the under 18s, but I got on fine with him. And one thing with Pelly was to have gone from working with Sergei Baltacha to going to working with Pelly was sort of two extremes of, sort of the attitude and the approach to managing a football club. Sergei was very, very professional, and Pelly was, although professional in the way he approached it, and he certainly could identify a player, and tactically was very, very astute. Having Pelly, it wasn't that much more different or much different from working with Jim Leishman, to be honest. We sort of take the same approach to the game in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't. Just the stories that I've got about Pelly, the stories that have been told umpteen times before. I wouldn't have used that.
I've said it before, but he's the most honest guy I've met in the game, Pelly. It's whether a win, a draw, or a loss, he fronted up and he told you exactly like it was after the game.
Yeah, well, that was it, and he knew. He knew that with players. He took the same approach with players as well. I don't think very many players would have fallen out with Pelly over the years. If they've found out that they weren't playing to, their full capability, then Pelly would have a word with them, and they would know. There would be very few people could sort of point the finger and say, "Well, you left me out on Saturday, and I've no idea why." Pelly would have told them.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that, Dave. Thanks again,
Billy. I'll keep it brief. You've obviously remained friends all after all these years, but you can tell us now, what was it really like playing for Peter Corbett?
As Peter says, to go from player to manager is a very difficult thing to do, because you've played with all these guys as teammates, and then to go in there as manager, and you've got to detach yourself from that, and it is such a difficult thing. It's a difficult balancing act. I think John Gregg found that at Ibrox. I mean, I know he fell out with Alex McDonald, to name one. Complete breakdown in communication, etc., etc. And they've been great teammates and great friends throughout the years. But at our level, we didn't have that issue. I mean, at Cali Park, things just carried on. We weren't as successful, to be honest. We kept going far, and we got the cup finals. We kept challenging for the league. We only won it once. I think we were runners in Peter's time. We must have been runners up about 3 or 4 times. We kind of against great teams. Dave's team from the Jags, they were a fantastic team. The Forest team that won the league, they were a really good team as well. The Ross County team of the early 90s, we were runners up to them a couple of times. We just kept near misses. We won the odd trophy, but
Yeah, and of course there were new kids in the block as well, with Cove Rangers being on the scene.
Very much so. I remember though going down to Cove the first time we went there. We were determined. We were the team at the time, and we were determined to show them. We beat them 3-1 the first time we played them down there, and we didn't look upon Cove as challengers at that stage. We were Cali. We were the big team, and they weren't. That was our attitude. Obviously, things have changed.
Yeah. Billy, thanks for that. I'll pass you back to Dave.
Peter, you finished up your Highland League involvement at Clach-na-Cudden. You and Clach were made for each other, in my opinion.
Maybe. Yeah, I went back there 1991, just after they re-emerged from the liquidation, and they asked me to come as commercial manager. And Cali job had finished by then, so I said yes. I also managed to push my way into the football management team. As I say earlier, you want to be in the football all the time too. So I managed to get on the same with Roshi and Alec Caldwell as a management team, Roshi in charge team. And we did fine. We did fine in the commercial wise. It went well again. Took a fair bit of money for the club, but it's fine. I was quite at home, as you say, Dave. I was quite at home at the Clach Park. I knew quite a lot of people from the area, so that helps you again. The football side went pretty well for the first 3 or 4 years. We got some decent players. Won the North Cap. I lost to them in this Cup, but we did okay. Then it was a case of I ended up doing other jobs, kind of away from football. I ended up running the social club. I ended up being secretary, doing commercial as well. So it's fine. I was okay with that. I'm quite happy. Sometimes the more work I get, the more happier I am. Sometimes, there's a great expression that if you're wanting something done, ask a busy man, and that's I've always thought that's so true in life, So I was a busy man all the time. So yeah, but it's good. It's quite easy to go back to, and it's good to see the Clach getting revived. I mean, there's a lot of businessmen, David Dowlings of the world, Callum Grant, Jim McDowell came in and put money in the club, and it was great times. At the time, it was great times. It just once again, Highland League can take all that away from you if you don't watch it,
Were you chairman at Clach at one time, Peter? Or am I imagining that?
Vice chairman of Brian Urquhart the second time they came back from administration. Yeah, vice chairman. Yeah.
And I'm sure you would, once this is all over, you'll be back at Grant Street watching Clach on the odd occasion, I'm sure.
Well, I'm actually back now, Dave. I'm actually in the board again. I got back in there to give him a hand there the last 6 months. So
good.
I'm back on the board. So I'm doing stuff for them at the moment just to help out. So I would like to get help in the football side if I can. But Sandy had a tough baptism last year, Sandy McLeod. But we're hoping to try and deal with that this year and make it a bit more easier for Sandy and things like that. So, but once again, we're in the lap of the gods at the moment. We've no idea when we'll start playing football. Your reserves will run out eventually, and financial reserves. I mean, so the sooner we're batting earning money, because at the moment there is no money coming in at all.
Yeah.
We've got a great sponsor in Alan Savage at Orion, but that will just keep us going for so long. But it's testing times.
Look forward to the great pleasure of seeing you at Grant Street Park again, Peter. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dave. That's one thing I always look forward to is the hospitality side of the game, meeting people at the park, meeting people in the boardroom, that sort of thing. So it's great. So I look forward to seeing you there, Dave. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Peter.
Cheers.
Well, that's good to hear, Peter. I'm a firm believer that football people should be involved in football. So that's great news to hear. And I'm sure your input will be greatly appreciated at Grant Street.
Cheers,
Davie, you took a wee bit of time out due to work commitments after the job at Fort William, and then you find yourself back in the dugout at Mossop Park with the late, great Alan Scott.
What? I got to know Alan when John Scott was through with Cali Thistle, and Alan was coming back and forth watching John. John played, sometimes in the second team. So, and I got, chatting to him then, and you know, obviously John must have given me a reference as well, because he was looking for an assistant manager at one point and came touched me. Now going back to a club that you'd been with before was kind of a bit of a, you know, whether I should do it or whether I shouldn't. But you know, the chairman at the time, Bruce, spoke to me about it and said I was more than welcome back. And so just get back involved in a chance to get involved with a good club again. You know, it was great. Really enjoyed my time there. And you know, Alan's been a big loss as well. He probably, you know, had to resign from the Forest job a bit earlier than he would have wanted to, because we were starting to build something there as well. And then poor Alan didn't get that much longer after that before he sadly passed away as well. You know,
a very
also,
quiet
so.
spoken, calm sort of gentleman, I thought, as a referee. He never appeared to be one to get, you know, go over the top.
No, I left that to myself and Robbie Nichol usually. You know.
Well, Robbie, aye, for sure. But no, he was a gentleman.
Maybe that's how to meet myself and Robbie on board, you know. But he was really good to work with. He had great ideas about football. He's a good coach as well, and he brought play. He knew a player, Alan, and he knew how to get the best out of a player. And it's a sad loss when he stopped being involved in football, and then subsequently passed away far too soon.
Yep, but it was a great shock. It was a great loss to North football, I would say.
Yeah,
definitely.
A decent player as well, from when I remember his days at Backy and that. You know?
Thanks for sharing that with us, Davie.
Davie, that was the quickest I've seen you move in years. When you got up to put the light on, you were back. Billy, can we talk about your perspective at the end of your career, basically about the merger? It was difficult times for players of both clubs, and I'm pretty sure that the merger would never have happened. And as Martin said, Ross County possibly would never have got in either if it hadn't been for a certain Jock MacDonald.
Undoubtedly, I mean, Jock was probably the prime mover in terms of, you know, getting North representation into the Scottish leagues. I mean, if you think back and you look at it now, it was absolutely ridiculous that there was no, you know, full, you know, professional representation at Scottish league level above Perth and Aberdeen. It was just nonsense. And, you know, the Jags almost got in 1973, but there was nothing after that. I mean, I know Carly made representations a couple of times, but, you know, never went anywhere. So, you know, Jock was definitely, the fact that he was such a high-profile guy, that certainly helped the team to get in. I mean, as far as the merger itself is concerned, like Dave, you know, I probably came from a different perspective. I was always of the opinion that Carly could have done it on their own. Probably in hindsight, I now feel that Carly shouldn't have gone on their own. But what should have happened was that all three clubs should have been involved. I know Clark had their reasons for not doing it, and, you know, no disrespect to them for that. But I think the whole merger animosity would have been a lot easier if Clark, Carly, and Thistle had come in, and it had been a new club with, you know, a different name, whatever else. You know, but if all three clubs had come in, we could have still had representation perhaps in the Highland League, with a reserve team in the Highland League. I don't think that would have been, you know, too much to ask for. But, you know, at the time, it was acrimonious, to say the least. Acrimonious.
I think that's maybe a good time to end what's been a great and enjoyable evening. And it's the time is marching on. It's nice to see the sun's come up in your house.
We're doing fantastically well, guys. We're going to make it. We're going to make it.
Good.
Dave, do you have a head scratcher for us this week?
Yeah, I've got very, very easy. Well, I think it's an easy head scratcher. In the late 60s, Elgin City, I think, were the first and possibly the only Highland League team that's ever got to the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup. They played Greenock Morton at Capello. The score was Morton 2, Elgin City 1. Who scored Elgin City's goal that day?
Great question, as always. And how do people answer your question, Dave?
Go onto Twitter and at Up the Dooney, which is a reflection on a beautiful walk in our hometown of Rothes. It's at Up the Dooney, and stick your answer up there. Who scored Elgin City's historic goal in the Scottish Quarter Cup final say quarter cup. Yeah, quarter final of the cup at Capello when Morton beat Elgin 2-1. What's in that tea I've been getting all night?
Aye, well, it hides a gin well, Dave. Guys, it's been a fantastic show tonight, I think. It's been an absolute pleasure to have three real legends of the game. Peter Corbett, Davie Milroy, Billy Urquhart. Brilliant to have you on the show. I'm quite sure we're going to get a really good response from our viewers this week. No pressure. Next week, folks, we're going to have a guest who has travelled many miles with one club. We have a guest who has travelled many miles with many clubs. And as confirmed during the recording of this show, we're going to have someone who resides not too far from these guys, who is probably remembered as the voice of Highland League football. As always, we say stay safe. Thank you for watching and see you next week.